Don't look so desperate, William. I'm sure Liz won't be long.
I hope so.
Sit down, old chap. I expect her lecture overran.
Yes, I expect that's it. Though I can't think what she's doing having lectures this time of year.
Well, it's a vacation course.
And I can't think why she didn't tell you I was coming.
Well, neither can I, but she is a funny girl.
She wrote to me, see, telling me she'd left her old digs and was living here for the time being.
That's right. She moved in while we were in France.
I expect she'll stay on for a bit now we're back. I am glad she asked you to tea, William. You two haven't seen each other for weeks, have you?
No, we haven't.
Not since the floods.
Always struck me as a bit odd, that.
What's that, then?
Well, Liz disappearing from your camp like that and no one knowing why.
Well, yes, it was rather. Is that her?
Not unless she's forgotten her key. But she may have. She's been so dreamy these days.
Hello, it is you.
Oh, sorry, Uncle. I forgot my key.
Elizabeth, carry on.
Well, I'm sure you two won't mind being left alone for a while. Jack and I still have a lot of unpacking to do.
What? Oh, yes, that's right. We only got back last night.
I haven't seen you for 100 years.
Oh, I've missed you too.
I thought you weren't coming.
But I wrote to you.
I know, but I've been here for hours.
Oh, Gwilym, you do exaggerate.
As lovely you are, girl.
Thank you.
Oh. Sorry and all that. The better half thought you might be ready for a pot of tea. A stupid idea.
No, really, it would be lovely. Can I help?
Nothing to do except wait for the kettle. Why don't you have a bun or a sandwich or something in the meantime?
I'm sorry I was late getting back. I got stuck on the tube.
That's all right.
I was afraid you wouldn't wait.
Don't be daft, girl. Wait for you forever. You know that.
Would you?
You know I would. Come on, what you going all sad for?
I'm not sad. I'm happy.
So why'd you look as though you're going to cry then?
Oh, Gwilym.
Oh, I've so much to ask you and to tell you. Seems such ages since we last saw each other.
I know.
And with Mrs. Cartland watching over you like she was at Layford and you in your state, couldn't say anything.
I know, it was rotten for you.
And then I had to rush back to Cumbach and leave you the very next day. Have you forgiven me?
For what?
I upset you at the camp. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, I was stupid.
No, you mustn't blame yourself. It was me who was stupid. Oh, it's complicated. I'll explain it to you, I promise. But we'll talk about it. But perhaps not just yet.
Whenever you feel like it. Don't look so worried.
You must warm the pot. I insist.
Phyllis, dear heart, they don't warm the pot in India, and that's where the stuff comes from.
This isn't India, it's Marylebone.
They always go on like that.
Yes, pretty often.
It's a bit difficult to talk, isn't it?
We could go for a walk, I suppose, after tea.
Or to my digs. We could be alone there.
You know what I feel about that.
Where then?
Here we are, tea for two. And then you will be left utterly in peace, I promise you, while Jack and I finish the unpacking.
Oh, thanks, Phil.
Peace, she said. As a first meeting, this has been a bit of a disaster, hasn't it?
I'm sorry, Gwilym.
Perfectly good digs I've got. Warm, cosy. Really nice place.
Whether it's nice or not isn't the point, is it? I expect they'll be quiet now.
Come on, let's go for a walk. At least we'll be by ourselves.
We can't just walk out on them after they've taken all this trouble. Look, finish your tea and then I'll thank them and tell them we're going out. Do you want some sugar?
No, thanks.
Ah, there we are. If you'd like to take those suitcases out, Gates shan't need you again this evening.
Very good, sir.
Oh, good evening, Mrs. Gate.
Good evening, sir. Shall I take those for you?
No, that's all right. Thanks so much. Got a lot of work to do before dinner.
Very good, sir. There are some letters for you on the table.
Yes, I see.
Well, if that'll be all, sir,
Mrs. Gate, is there anything wrong?
No, sir, nothing. Didn't Gates tell you in the car, sir?
No, he didn't get a chance. I was reading all the way from the station. Now, what is it?
Well, I'm sorry, sir, but yes, there is something wrong.
Yes, I thought as much. Now, what is it?
The fact is, I've had enough.
I beg your pardon?
I'm not stopping here any longer, sir.
Well, now, what do you mean, Mrs. Gates? Not staying where any longer?
Here, sir, at Larkfield.
Mrs. Gates, what are you talking about? Now, has something happened since I've been away?
It has.
Well, go on.
I'm sorry, sir, but it's her ladyship.
What?
I can't stay here, not in the same house with her, sir. I'm sorry, I don't like to speak of it, but you asked me, and seeing how you've asked me, well, I've got to say it. The fact is that her ladyship has...
You've arrived.
Oh, hello, Mother. How are you?
If that'll be all, Commander.
Yes, thanks very much, Mrs. Gates. Perhaps we can have a word about it later on? Now, Mother, what's all this about?
I must speak to you.
Yes, dear, I think you must.
It's about Mrs. Gates.
So I gathered.
Mrs. Gates and I have had an argument. I'm very angry and very upset. That wretched cleaning woman, Mrs. Webb, has broken my beautiful Chelsea figure. You know how much I loved it. Stupid woman. I knew she'd break something sooner or later. Her mind is never on her work. She chatters the whole time, and if you tell her to stop, she whistles.
Mother, do you think you could come to the point?
Well, I told her she could leave.
What?
I dismissed her.
Oh, because she whistles?
Because she broke my Chelsea figure. And Mrs. Gates is very angry and very upset that I didn't ask her about Mrs. Webb first. And now she's given notice. And if Mrs. Gates goes, then Gates goes too.
Mother, do you actually mean to say that the Gates have given notice?
I've just said so, Arthur. Don't you ever listen?
Oh, for heaven's sake. You know, I've just had a very tiring week wrestling with the Navy estimates. Now, I came home deliberately so I could work in peace. I found you turned the place into a battleground.
I did expect you'd be on my side.
It's not a question of sides, Mother, it's the Gates. I will not have them upset. Well, they've been here for years, and they're almost part of the family.
I suppose their feelings are more important than mine.
No, of course not, Mother, but... Oh, really, this is so unnecessary. Look, Mother, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to. Ever since you came here to live at Larkfield, there's been a...
Yes?
Well, an atmosphere. Oh, Mother, I'm sorry. I don't want to be unkind. But, Mother, I know. Now, this was once your home, but, you see, times have changed. I mean, Mrs. Gates is the housekeeper now, and if you just sort of sack one of her cleaning staff, well, I can understand her being upset.
And what about me, Arthur? I'm upset.
Yes, dear, yes, I see you are. Now, look, dear, I'm awfully tired. Do you mind if we deal with this tomorrow?
But, Arthur...
No, Mother, I've got a lot of work to do before dinner, so, later... Layford 17, please. Thank you. Oh, hello. Parsons? Yes. Is Mrs. Cartland there, please? She isn't. Where? London? No message. No, I'll try and get her at Admiral Barrow's flat. Yes, I have the number, thank you. I want to make a trunk call, please. Oh, it's a London number. Kensington 4576. Yes, I'd be delighted if you ring me back. Thank you. Come in.
I've just come to close the curtains, sir.
Oh, yes, of course, Mrs. Gates. I'll get right out of your way. Now, Mrs. Gates, surely we're going to be able to talk you out of leaving us?
I'm afraid not, sir. I'm sorry. We'll stay until the end of the month, and then after that we'll have to go.
Yes, but sorry, I mean, this is
I'm
such a...
just as upset as anyone about it, sir. I don't like to speak ill of her ladyship, but I must. She was very rude to me.
Now, Mrs. Gates...
And then with all this extra ironing that Nanny's got to do for her ladyship, and her ladyship's bell's going every 5 minutes, and nothing you ever do for her is right, sir.
Hello? Oh, thank you. Oh, Admiral Barrell, this is Arthur Bourne here. I'm so sorry to trouble you. Is Rosie there? She's not? Gone to the theatre? Has she? No, splendid to see her out and about. With whom? Julian Palmer? What on earth? No, it's quite all right, thanks very much. Oh, well, it's just that I got a small domestic crisis on my hands, and I thought that Rosie might be able to, Of course, yes, she's gone to the theatre with Julian Palmer. No, it can wait until she gets back to Layford. Yes. Oh, do you happen to know when that will be? Friday. I see. Well, thank you very much. Yes. Goodbye.
My goodness, what will they do next? Morning, darling.
Morning.
I suppose, strictly speaking, I should say afternoon. My God, you look awful. Didn't you sleep?
No, not awfully well. Look, can I have a cigarette?
You smoking?
Yes, if I can find one.
In the box on the mantelpiece, darling, over there.
Oh, yes, thanks.
Why the bad night?
Oh, I don't know. Gwilym and I walked too far, I think.
I did wonder when you weren't home by the time we went to bed. When you were seeing your gorgeous man again.
Tomorrow night, he's got tickets for that concert at the Queen's Hall.
Oh, you lucky thing.
Yes.
You don't sound very happy about it.
Of course I'm happy about it.
What's the matter, Liz?
Oh, I don't know. Well, it's Gwilym.
I rather imagined it was. You're very fond of him, aren't you?
Yes.
So why the sad face?
You know, it's strange. In most things, we agree, absolutely. We understand each other. And yet there are some things.
I think you two are well suited. Whatever his plans are, I'd be inclined to go along with them.
Would you?
You don't want to lose him.
No.
What are you doing for lunch?
Uncle Julian and Rosie are coming to take me out.
Really?
Oh, I'm sorry, Phil, I forgot to tell you.
That's quite all right.
Just hope they won't be early.
Any particular reason they're taking you to lunch? I mean Julian and Rosie.
Yes, it is a bit odd, isn't it? Rosie said something about wanting to talk to me.
I see. Well, you better go and do something about your appearance, hadn't you? I mean, if you're going out.
Yes, I suppose I'd better. Oh, no, is that them already?
No, it's nearly 12:30. I'll look after them. You go and tidy your hair.
Okay, thanks.
Rosie, Julian.
Hello, Phil.
Go through, Liz. Won't be a moment. How are you, Phyllis? Very well, thank you, Rosie.
Oh, what a charming flat you have.
You've been here before, Julian, haven't
What?
you?
Oh, not for some time. You've had it redecorated. Or something.
Not for 3 years.
Oh, my, how time flies.
How's Liz? All right, I think. Got over her experience in the floods? Oh, yes, I think so.
Yeah, Rosie wanted us to take her out to lunch so that we could have a bit of a chat with her.
Oh, what about? Oh, nothing important.
Actually, we hope to catch her before she meets that Gwilym fellow again, though I like him myself.
Too late. What do you mean, too late? Well, Gwilym came to tea yesterday, and afterwards they went for a long walk together. Very long. Oh, dear. He behaved quite well, Rosie. He didn't give way to the beast in him, as far as I'm aware. I just wish that we'd seen her first. Her godfather and I want to give her some advice about one or two things. I do think we should all stop giving the poor girl advice. We'll only confuse her. We'll only confuse her if we all give her different advice.
Ah, Liz. Well, how pretty you look.
Come in. Oh, Gates, come in. Where's Mrs. Gates?
Oh, well, she's in the kitchen, sir. I thought perhaps you might rather speak to me on my own, sir.
Yes, quite. Where's her ladyship?
Oh, she's upstairs, sir, getting ready. The car's at the door. I'm going to take her to Holbury, sir, a bit of shopping.
Good. Well, 2 days since I came home, Gates. Have you had it out with Mrs. Gates?
Yes, I have, sir. Over and over. But she won't change her mind, sir, not unless her ladyship apologises.
Oh, that her ladyship will not do.
I know, sir.
We've got to find some other way out of this. I take it you don't want to leave?
Oh, last thing in the world I want, sir. But Mrs. Gates is my wife, sir. I don't agree with what she's doing, but, well, I got to go along with her. And though I say it as shouldn't, her being my wife like, she can be a bit pig-headed.
Yes, quite. Then I suppose Mrs. Gates doesn't really want to leave. I mean, she just sort of made a stand against what's happened.
Well, aye, could be that, sir.
Heat of the moment, handed in her notice, and now, of course, she won't take it back.
Pride's been hurt, you see, sir.
I wish we could find some sort of compromise. You know, what we need is some sort of solution where both parties just sort of give a bit.
Oh, these two ladies, sir, well, neither of them likes giving in. Oh, begging her ladyship's pardon, sir.
No, that's quite all right. I know. What we need is a catalyst.
Come again, sir?
Oh, it's someone outside the circle of the conflict, someone interested, but who's not affected personally.
Mrs. Cartland?
Exactly.
Oh, that's a great idea, sir. Mrs. Gates thinks a lot of Mrs. Cartland.
Well, that's agreed then?
Yes, Commander. Mrs. Gates would listen to Mrs. Cartland.
I think her ladyship might, too. I'll have another shot at getting Mrs. Cartland on the telephone. She might be back from London by now. Oh, and thank you very much indeed, Gates.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You're not supposed to be private chauffeur for a ladyship. Oh, she's taking advantage again. That's what she's doing.
Now, Eileen, you listen to me.
You're not supposed to drive her without the commander tells you to.
He did.
When?
Well, at least he didn't exactly tell me to, but I suggested it and he thought it was a good idea.
Whatever did you do that for? Haven't you got enough of your own work in the garden?
Oh, now, look here, Eileen. I know how you feel about things.
Well, it's time you did by now.
Well, how do you think the commander feels?
Yeah, I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't help it. It's not my fault.
Maybe not. But that's why I suggested taking her ladyship out for the afternoon. To give the commander a bit of peace to get on with his work.
Oh, well, in that case...
Besides, he may be having a visitor this afternoon.
Oh.
Mrs. Cartland.
How do you know?
Well, he said he was going to ring up and ask her.
Oh, well, nothing special in that, is there?
Oh. You think a great deal of Mrs. Cartland, don't you, Eileen?
What of it?
Oh, nothing. Only her advice is always worth listening to.
Oh, so that's it, is it? Aye, well, if you think Mrs. Cartland or anybody else can talk me into changing my mind, you can think again, Fred.
Well, you might at least listen to what she's got to say.
Well, I can't. Not this afternoon.
Why not?
Because I won't be here, that's why. I'm entitled to my time off, aren't I? I'll get tea all ready, then Mrs. Graham can take it in and I'll be back this evening. I'm going to spend my afternoon at the lodge, answering advertisements in the paper for domestic staff wanted.
I love that sound.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
Glad you came.
Yes.
After the concert, I got a surprise for you.
Oh, what?
Dinner. Steak and wine by candlelight, all laid on at my digs.
Oh, it's very kind of you to ask me over.
I could tell you were upset by your voice on the telephone. Anyway, I thought it would be easier to talk here.
Well, when did you get back?
This morning.
And where's Julia?
Oh, he's coming back later. Didn't he telephone?
No, he didn't.
Oh.
How was the trip?
To London? Oh, fine.
Successful, was it?
Oh, yes, we bought some gorgeous carpets for the mill house.
Did you?
He has very good taste.
Who?
Julian.
Oh, well, it's Julian now, is it?
Why not? We've become very good friends.
Have you? What play did you say?
How did you know that we went to a play?
I rang up your father.
Oh, did you? May one ask why?
Well, yes, you weren't here, and I wanted to know, ask your advice.
Oh, I see. About your domestic problems.
Yes, of course. Oh, I'm sorry to drag you into this, Rosie, but you know, you're the only person who can pacify Mother or talk sense to Mrs. Gates.
Well, I'm so glad I have my uses.
Oh, now, Rosie, don't be ridiculous. You know perfectly well.
Arthur, I'm only teasing you. I don't look so worried. We'll sort something out.
I wouldn't be too sure about that.
I promise you. Now, let me tell you about Liz.
Yes, how was she?
A bit strange.
A bit strange or strange?
Well, both, really.
Ah.
I wish Gwilym had left her alone a bit longer. I did warn him.
Oh, they met again? Already?
Yes, on Wednesday.
I see.
Oh, Jack and Phil were there, too. Do you know, Arthur, I don't think Phyllis's influence is the best in the world. I know she's your sister.
Oh, that's quite all right. Feel a bit the same.
That's why Julian and I were so anxious to take Liz out to lunch.
Did you get a chance to talk to her about Gwilym?
Oh, yes. I must say she was very good about it. Didn't tell me to mind my own business once.
No, of course she wouldn't. She's come to rely on you. Do you remember when she came to you for advice about her engagement to Peter? Well, then again, after the floods?
Yes, I know. I'm very flattered.
She's lucky to have you.
It's very hard for the young people today with the moral climate being what it is. Especially with such an attractive and, I suspect, passionate young man as Gwilym.
Is he? Well, that's not very reassuring.
Oh, just the opposite, don't you see? You know, after I talked to Liz about marriage and morals and sex, I feel much surer of her.
You do?
Oh, yes. She has a very strong character. Rather like you, Arthur. I don't think you need worry that she'll give way to that young man's undoubted charms. I don't believe she'll jump the gun.
Thank God for that.
I feel quite weak.
Come on. Home.
If I'd known what I was missing, I'd have come back sooner.
It's no joke, Julian. Everyone's very upset. Arthur keeps going for walks.
Oh, that's a very bad sign.
Yes. And tonight he dashed over to Layford for dinner just as if he was trying to avoid me.
Oh, he couldn't be, could he? Surely.
No, I don't think so. But he is behaving very strangely. I can't see why he's so upset about Mrs. Gates going she's a troublemaker.
Oh, come now, Lady Bourne, she's not that.
Well, ever since I came back here to live, she's resented it. She makes me feel unwelcome.
Well, I'm sure she didn't mean to.
Is there anything else you'll be needing, milady, before I go back to the lodge?
No, thank you, Mrs. Gates. I can manage.
Very good, milady.
Mrs. Gates.
Yes.
If you can spare me a moment, Mrs. Gates. I understand that you're leaving Larkfield.
Yes, sir, I am. And Gates.
Yes, well, I have a suggestion that I'd like to make to you.
Oh, nice. No good you trying to stop me, sir.
Oh, I wouldn't dream of trying to stop you. No, I was just wondering... You know, I should be moving into the old mill house shortly.
Yes, I had heard that, sir.
Yes, well, it occurred to me that, well, if you have nothing else in mind, that is that, well, I mean, I shall be needing staff.
Will you, sir?
So, if you would care to consider it.
Oh, that's most kind of you, sir.
Yeah. Well, talk it over with Gates. There's no need to decide immediately.
Oh, I will. I'll go and tell him right away. Oh, thank you very much, Captain Palmer.
What do you think you're doing, Julian?
You ready then?
Nearly. Wonderful news, Fred.
Oh, what's that?
We've got a new position.
Huh?
Yeah, with Captain Julian. He asked me just now.
Indeed.
Yeah, aren't you pleased? Oh, I know I am. I didn't want to go somewhere miles and miles away from here. That mill house will suit me right down to the ground.
Well, it won't suit me.
Eh? Why not, Fred?
Because I want to stay here, that's why not.
Oh, that's just too bad. We've got to go and that's all there is to it.
Eileen, why must you be so pig-headed?
Don't you call me pig-headed.
Well, you are.
Well, if I am, then it's with good reason. Because life hasn't been worth living since her ladyship moved in here. And you know it, Fred Gates.
She's an old lady. You should make allowances for her.
I have done. I do. And all she ever does is take advantage. I mean, look at poor old Nanny. She's just worn to a frazzle with all that fetching and carrying her ladyship makes her do for her.
But, Eileen, we've been here at Larkfield for 13 years. I don't want to pull up roots at our time of life.
It's not too late to start again, Fred. Especially with a nice gentleman like Captain Palmer.
Well, I don't want to start again. Anyway, we can't leave.
Why not, pray?
Because we haven't paid the commander back yet. The money we owe him for the car.
Oh, is that all? We'll pay him when we get to Millhouse.
Well, that's taking advantage.
And haven't we been taken advantage of and all? What do you think's been happening to us all this time?
You don't give any mind to my feelings, do you, Eileen? I want to stay here. And if it was left to me, we would stay here.
Well, we can't stay here. And that's all there is to it.
You know, if you hadn't invited me over for dinner this evening, I think I would have murdered Mother.
I thought there was a fair possibility of that.
Oh, poor Mother, I feel rather mean leaving her. But honestly, I'm so angry with her. It's just as when our paths don't cross too much at the moment.
I know, it's a rotten situation.
Never mind. Julian's there to take care of her. He's very good with her. Lots of patience. Far more than I have, even at the best of times.
Well, you have a lot on your mind at the moment, don't you?
We had rather a wearing week at the Admiralty. Usual battle with the Treasury about our estimate. They seem to think a navy can function without ships.
Well, no wonder you look so tired.
Oh, I'd be all right, Rosie. If it wasn't for this maddening domestic problem.
Oh, Arthur, don't worry about it. I've told you I'll do my best.
Do you think you could persuade Mother to apologise? No, I don't think even you could do that at the moment. Or perhaps, we'll convince Mrs. Gates that she's regretting it and she won't do it again?
All right, I'll do my best.
What would I do without you?
Oh, you'd manage.
I very much doubt it.
Liz, do you know what the time is?
It's
It's after 4. I was just going to ring the police. Where on earth have you been?
with Gwilym, actually.
Till this hour?
I'm sorry, Phil, I didn't think you'd be worried. We didn't notice the time.
I see. Oh, it had to happen sometime, I suppose. Would you like a drink? I'll have to have one or I'll never get back to sleep. Oh, darling. What's the matter?
Sorry, I don't know why I'm crying.
It's not always what you expect the first time. You mustn't worry.
It's not that.
What on earth's the matter? Oh, Liz, you're tired. Bed now. Talk tomorrow. Oh, darling, you are upset, aren't you? I don't understand. I thought you were in love with Gwilym.
I am.
Then what is it?
Oh, I don't know. Coming home in the taxi, I was fine, but suddenly I...
Oh, it's reaction. You'll be all right when you've had a good sleep.
I keep thinking about Daddy.
Your father?
I keep thinking of what he'd say.
Well, don't tell him.
But he'll know.
Not unless you tell him. It's your life.
But then we have a duty to our parents.
Oh, look, Liz. You say you're in love with Gwilym.
Yes, I am.
And he's in love with you.
Well, he says so.
I know so. The way he looks at you.
Yes, but that doesn't make it right.
Oh, my darling, that's the whole point. Of course it does. You love each other. You wanted each other. What could be more normal? Liz, it's not the end of the world. You're not branded a fallen woman because of one night of love.
You don't understand.
Oh, yes, I do. Listen, my pet, I assure you I felt exactly the same.
You?
Yes. I was madly in love with Robert.
Oh, I don't remember him.
It was before your time, darling. It was 1918, the last year of the war. He came home on leave. We planned to be married after the war. He persuaded me to spend the night with him at the Green Park Hotel. He was killed just before Armistice Day.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It was a long time ago.
I don't remember him.
You do get over the guilt feelings, you see, I promise.
Yes, maybe.
I did.
Thank you, Phil, for trying to help. I suppose I'm just a bit muddled, that's all.
Oh, hell.
What's going on?
Oh, Jack.
What's the matter, old girl?
Is it all my fault?
What?
It's Liz. She's desperately upset.
Is she? Oh. Oh. Took your advice, did she?
Don't say it was my advice. She's a free agent. She's grown up and quite capable of making up her own mind.
All right, all right. No need to get so heated.
She takes everything so damn seriously.
Yes, she does, doesn't she? Not like you and me, eh? Oh, come on, cheer up.
Do you think she'll be all right?
Good Lord, yes. We'll just give her time.
I suppose you're right.
Come on. Betty buys. What about our sex life?
Oh, Jack, you're incorrigible.
Gwilym, I've been trying to get you. Yes, it's lovely to hear you too. Gwilym, I wanted... Yes, I've missed you too. Yes, very much. Listen, I wanted to get you before tonight. I have to talk to you. No, nothing's happened. I just wanted to talk to you before we go, that's all. No, I can't. It's too important to tell you over the telephone. You will, all right. I'll be waiting for you. Yes. Love you too.
Arthur? Julian?
Morning, Mother. Did you sleep well?
Very well, thank you, Arthur.
Look, will you be all right for a short while? I have to go over to see Chapman at the dairy.
Oh, please don't bother about me. I'm perfectly happy.
I won't be long. Morning, Gates.
Morning, sir. Yes, my lady.
Why are you answering the bell, Gates?
Well, I just happen to be in the kitchen, my lady.
I want to speak to Mrs. Gates.
Oh, do you? Anything special? Pardon me for asking, my lady.
Well, I want to speak to you both.
Oh, well, I'll fetch Mrs. Gates.
Ah, good morning, Lady Bourne.
Good morning, Julian. Haven't you got anything to do?
Well, yes, I have the Times here to read.
Arthur's gone over to the dairy. Wouldn't you like to join him?
Well, not really. I'm not very good with cows.
You could go for a walk or do some sketching.
Yes, I could, if I wanted to.
Oh, please go, Julian. I want to talk to the Gates in private.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you say so? I'll make myself scarce. Yes, I'll go and find Arthur. And put up with the cows.
How soon will you be moving into the mill house?
Ah, well, not immediately. You see, the carpets aren't laid yet, and one or two other things. Though, fortunately, staff is no longer a problem.
Quite. But you'll be staying here quite a little while longer.
Well, a few weeks, yes. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all. It's not my house.
No. Yes, well, I'll leave you in peace. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Oh, Mrs. Gates, I've written this little note for Mrs. Webb. Perhaps you'd be good enough to give it to her.
I'm sorry, my lady, but if it's more complaints...
Oh, I'll give it to her, my lady.
Oh, thank you, Gates. It's merely to say that I'm quite prepared to overlook her carelessness on this occasion.
Well, that's very good of you, my lady.
Well, if that's all, my lady, we'll...
This whole business of Mrs. Webb, it's been very awkward. You must remember that Larkfield used to be my house. I was mistress in it.
Yes, my lady, I do know that.
And it's been difficult to come back after all these years. And you see, it's rather hard when you've been used to running a house to find suddenly that you're just a guest in that house.
Aye, it must be that, my lady.
So, if sometimes I seem rather hard to please, I hope you'll remember that. And also that I am getting on in years, and when people are getting old, they're very apt sometimes to become a little difficult, you know.
Oh, my lady.
But of course, as Captain Palmer's been talking to you about going to work for him...
Oh, nothing's settled, my lady. We could reconsider.
Well, in that case, I do hope you will.
We all say things we don't mean, my lady.
That's quite all right. We'll say no more about it. And I think you'll find that that letter to Mrs. Webb will put everything right. And now, I expect you've both got things to do.
Thank you, my lady.
Yes, thank you, my lady.
All right to come in now?
Perfectly all right, Julian. And I'm happy to tell you that your plan to entice Arthur's servants away has come to nothing.
What are you talking about?
Well, I'm sorry to say that Julian has not been behaving very well. He tried to persuade the Gates to leave here and go to the mill house.
Well, I thought they were leaving anyway.
I'm so sorry. I thought Lady Bourne wanted them to go.
Rubbish. Just because of a trifling misunderstanding. Fortunately, I know how to deal with servants, and I've arranged for the Gates to stay on.
You what?
Well, I explained to them that I was perfectly willing to forget the whole miserable business of Mrs. Webb, and they are too.
Good heavens! How did you manage that?
I wrote a little note to Mrs. Webb and enclosed £2 and told her to be more careful in the future.
Well, you managed that with great finesse. I think you ought to be at Westminster rather than me.
What's that, Arthur? Why should Julian be in Westminster?
Oh, nothing, Mother. Well, I think I'll just ring up Rosie till it's too late.
Too late for what, Arthur? Why are you talking in riddles?
I don't know, Mother. Relief, I suppose. Anyway, I'll ring up Rosie, tell her not to bother to come over this
Oh,
afternoon.
don't do that, Arthur. I'm always delighted to see Rosie.
Yes, so I gather.
Well, after all, ours is a very intimate relationship.
Oh, is it?
Well, wouldn't you call it that? The relationship between landlord and tenant? Lady Bourne, would you care to walk in the garden with me, just to show that I'm forgiven?
Certainly, Julian.
Arthur?
Don't hover.
I'm not hovering. I'm going to say goodbye to Liz. Will you be all right, my darling?
Yes, of course I will.
It does seem mean leaving you.
Oh, I don't mind.
Looks as if she could do with a restful evening.
Jack.
Yes, dear?
Right. Lots of eggs in the kitchen whenever you're hungry.
Yes, thank you.
Night, night, sweet niece.
Have a nice time.
We will.
You darling.
Hello.
Alone?
Yes, they've gone out to a dinner party.
Oh, I've missed you.
I've only been gone a few hours.
Oh, but it seems so much longer. So, what's wrong then? Your phone call didn't half scare me.
Gwilym, sit down. I'll get you a drink.
What is it? What's happened?
Nothing.
Well, come on, let's get it over with, whatever it is. Then we can get going with our weekend.
But that's just it, about the weekend. We can't go.
Can't go? Why ever not, for heaven's sake?
But it's no good, Gwilym. You see, well, I can't do it.
I don't understand.
I can't stay with you in a hotel unless we have separate rooms.
What would be the point of that?
Look, you want me to stay with you, pretending to be your wife.
Well, yes, of course. We'll use a different name if you're superstitious.
But pretending to be married.
Well, naturally, you'd have to get a wedding ring.
From Woolworths, no doubt.
What's wrong, Cariad?
Oh, Gwilym, I don't want to hurt you. I've been thinking all day how to explain it to you.
Explain what, for heaven's sake?
I can't stay with you in a hotel as your wife.
Why not?
It would be wrong.
Wrong? For two people who love each other?
Yes, don't you see? It would cheapen it.
How?
By the pretense.
Our love is no pretense.
No, but our pretending to be married would be.
We talked about staying the weekend together last night. You thought it was a marvellous idea then.
Yes, I know I did, but since then I've realised that I can't go through with it.
But last night was so wonderful, wasn't it?
Yes, but...
But what? Oh,
Gwilym, no.
my God. You have changed since last night.
No, I haven't. Really, I haven't.
Still love me?
Yes.
So? Everything's all right.
No, it's not all right. Can't you see, Gwilym, that I want us to be married?
Well, yes, of course, ultimately.
I mean now, right away, as soon as we possibly can.
You're crazy, girl. Because we have one wonderful night together, it doesn't automatically follow we'll have a wonderful marriage. We've got to be sure.
I'm sure now.
But I'm not. Oh, forgive me, don't look like that. Dearest Elizabeth, I don't mean it. I am sure now, but will I be sure next week, next month, next year? Will you?
What do you suggest, then?
You know what I suggest. We live together. trial marriage like we talked about at Cumber.
You talked about it. I listened.
But you agreed.
I didn't agree, if you remember. I didn't agree at all. Why do you think I left the camp in such a state in the middle of the night?
I don't know why you left. I've been waiting for you to explain. But all you ever wrote to me was triviality, so naturally I assumed you'd got over your objections. And after last night, I was certain.
Last night I was weak. I should never have gone to your room, Gwilym. I'm sorry.
Sorry? I should think so.
Please, don't be angry with me.
Oh, Liz, dearest Liz, I love you so much. It's all so simple and natural, don't you see?
It may be natural for you, but it's no good for me. It has to be marriage for me.
Listen, Cariad. Living together is hard. You and I, we love each other now, but think, girl, marriage is a commitment for life. At least it is for me, and we're so different it would be a miracle if we made a go of things permanently.
How are we different?
Oh, in practically every way. Our backgrounds, country, class, homes, even language. We could end by hating each other, and I couldn't bear that.
We'd never hate each other, never.
Liz. There has never been anyone like you in my life before. Oh, I've had a lot of girls and many affairs, I admit it. But no one has ever touched my heart like you do. When I'm not with you, I ache for you. This time of separation has been unbearable. I love you with all my heart, Elizabeth. I love everything about you. The way you move, the way you look. From the first moment I met you, I knew I loved you. You know that, don't you? You've always known it.
And yet you still won't marry me.
I've not said that, Cariad. But not without a trial first.
Well, then it's no good, is it? Oh, Gwilym, can't we leave things as they were?
After last night? What are you suggesting, that we sit at opposite ends of the room and hold polite conversations about the weather? We can't go back, don't you see? We can only go on. Or stop seeing each other.
Gwilym, no.
I don't see any other way, do you?
Are your principles really so inflexible?
It's no good having principles if you don't hold to them, is it?
Yes, but if you love me as much as you say you do...
If you love me as you say you do. Oh, it's no good, is it? We could play this game forever and get nowhere.
Gwilym, are you saying goodbye to me?
You leave me no choice, Elizabeth.
Gwilym, no.
This will destroy us. If we meet, feeling as we do, and we are unable to make love, we'll be putting a terrible strain on ourselves. We'll end up quarrelling and hating each other. If I overcome your feelings of guilt, and we go on being lovers or living together, then you will forever hold it against me. Isn't that so, girl? What chance have we got? I will love you till the day I die.
come in?
Good morning, milady.
Good morning, Mrs. Gates.
It's going to be a lovely day. There, I brought you some of that nice marmalade from Harrods that you like so much. Now, is that comfortable for you?
Yes, very. Thank you. No newspaper.
Well, the post hasn't come yet.
Oh, I wasn't talking about the post. I said no newspaper.
I know, but the postman brings the newspapers. Had you forgotten, milady?
Oh, no, of course not. Oh, it's rather tiresome. In artillery mansions, the newspapers always arrived before I was awake, and breakfast without a newspaper is not the same.
No, I suppose not.
Where's Nanny?
Oh, she'll be along in a few minutes. She's feeling rather poorly today, milady.
Oh, perhaps she ought to spend the day in bed.
Well, I did suggest that, but she said no, she thought you might need her help today.
Oh, no, she's done my dress. Tell her to stay in bed today. Those are my orders.
Very well, milady.
I can manage perfectly well on my own. Oh, Mrs. Gates, you might just put my dressing gown at the foot of the bed, would you?
Yes.
And my slippers where I can reach them. Thank you. Oh, and my reading specs are on that little table.
Oh.
Not that there's anything to read. Oh, thank you. And now, as soon as the papers come, you will bring mine up, won't you?
Yes, I will, milady. And now I must be going because they'll be coming down for the breakfast.
I suppose so. I did want to have a word with you about luncheon today.
Well, it's all in hand, milady.
Has the creme brulee set nicely?
Yes, and now if you'll excuse me, I really must go.
And about the grouse, you're sure they've hung long enough?
Yes, milady.
Come in. Oh,
Morning,
hello,
Granny.
Vicky.
Had a good night.
Not bad at all. Mrs. She's gone.
Anything I can do?
Well, the last thing I want is to be a nuisance to anybody. But if later this morning you did have an hour to spare...
Oh, I'm sorry, Granny. Only Klaus and I are going over to the Harknesses at Pembury.
Oh, I see. Well, enjoy yourself, darling. You look very nice. I hope Klaus is a careful driver.
He is, very. He's teaching me to drive.
You see now. Well, oh, I'm so glad. He's such a nice boy. It's a pity.
Oh, Granny, don't you start. Everybody says the same.
Well, everyone's right in this case. But I don't want to spoil your day. Run along, darling, and ask your father to come up and see me after breakfast.
He's in London. Had you forgotten?
Oh, no, of course not. I meant your Aunt Phyllis.
I'll tell her. She's playing golf with Jack this morning, and then they're lunching at Layford. So I'm afraid you'll be all alone.
Not quite alone.
Why'd you stop?
You played F natural. It's F sharp.
Oh, Klaus, I'm sorry.
Kleine Vicky.
Oh, it is marvellous to have you here, safe and well. Now, this has happened before. I'd been playing this, and I made the same mistake, and we stopped.
The French call it déjà vu.
Grandpa once explained that to me. It's when half of your brain registers before the other half, so that you are remembering something that's only happened a split second before.
Sometimes that is so, but now this time you're remembering something that happened years ago, over 2 years in Munich.
When I lived with your parents in
That's
1935, I remember. Which only goes to show I haven't improved much, have I?
So that's nonsense, and you know it.
Good morning, my darlings. Don't mind me.
We don't, Phil. Where's Jack?
He's in the study telephoning. We're playing golf this morning, and then we're going over to Layford for lunch. Will you two be coming?
Oh, actually, no.
Oh, we've been asked over to the Harknesses, if that is all right.
Perfectly. I expect Mrs. Harkness wants news of your family.
In fact, she has news for me. A letter came through from them this week. Quite a long letter, and not so much censored this time.
Oh, good. Any news from the bank?
The Reichsbank?
Yes.
No, why should there be news?
My brother thought that you might have to leave after...
After my father's trial. It's very possible, I fear.
You don't want to leave?
I don't want to leave England, unless I can take Vicky back with me, and that is not possible yet.
Well, I must go and find out what's wrong with Nanny.
Yes, do. She's awfully upset about something. She wouldn't tell me what.
Nor me.
The post, Mrs. Poole. It was rather late this morning. Now, I've sorted out the commanders and I'll put it in the study. Oh, and Mrs. Webb's taken the ladyship's paper up.
Oh, thanks, Mrs. Gates.
Oh, what if there's one there from Laura? Nothing. Oh, dear.
My darling girl, if Laura will rush off and join a war, she can't expect her mail not to be held up.
If she had time to write.
I wish she hadn't gone.
That wretched Manfred, it's all his fault.
Not entirely.
Don't go, Mrs. Gates. I want a quick word with you.
Shall we go into the garden?
Yes, let's. See you later, Phil.
All right, Ducky.
Mrs. Gates, do you know what's wrong with Nanny? She's really very crotchety. I know there was trouble last week when Lady Bourne sacked Mrs. Webb, but I thought that had all calmed down.
Oh, yes, I think that has calmed down, Mrs. Poole. But now, you see, there's the business of her ladyship's luncheon party.
Well, it's hardly a party.
Well, perhaps I shouldn't say party. It's just an old friend of hers who's staying in the district and happens to be coming here to lunch today.
I know, but surely there's nothing wrong with that. Her mother must see her old friends as often as possible.
Oh, yes, of course, but I mean, there's been such a big fuss about it. And what she ordered seemed terribly elaborate for two old ladies having a quiet lunch together. And then yesterday she upset Nanny about a dress that needed a mend. I mean, as Nanny says, it's not reasonable when her ladyship's got so much else hanging in her wardrobe. But no, it had to be this particular shade of blue, so out comes this dress.
Poor Nanny. I'll have a word with her. I wonder who this visitor is. I must ask, Mother.
Oh, if you'll excuse me saying so, Mrs. Poole, I wouldn't if I were you. I mean, Nanny did just that yesterday, and her ladyship wasn't a bit pleased. No, she said she wasn't a child to be questioned over everything she did.
Oh, poor darling. She's quite right, of course. It must be hell to come back and live as a guest in your own home. You know, I'm not sure that this move was such a good idea, although it seemed so at the time. She had so many friends in London and played so much bridge.
Well, if you ask me, I think she's missing Mr. Ashley since he went to America. I mean, they used to play cards and backgammon so much.
And invariably squabbled like mad.
Perhaps that's what her ladyship misses.
You're a wise woman, Mrs. Gates.
That's a bit better. These daily women, they don't work as they should, you know. Well, will that be all, Mrs. Poole?
Oh, yes, thanks. You'd better get back to preparing your banquet. It's a good thing the rest of us are out.
Oh, yes. That's why her ladyship arranged for a friend to come today. When will the commander be back?
Well, not for a week at least. He has a lot of appointments in London.
And Captain Palmer?
This afternoon he's lunching with us at Layford. I might ask him to play a game of piquet with Mother sometime.
Oh, I'm sure he will. He's such a nice gentleman.
I hope he's not making too much extra work for you.
Oh, no, not at all, no. And the way he keeps his room, it's all, ship shape and Bristol fashion, as Gates would say.
Unlike my dear husband, I'm afraid.
What are you saying about your dear husband? Dear angelic Mrs. Gates, a cup of coffee, would that be possible?
Of course, sir.
I was saying how damned untidy you are.
True, but I'm happy. So what? Here. I've made most of my telephone calls.
Successfully?
Yes, very. I spoke to Dennis at Nice. Everything's splendid there. And I spoke to old Geoffrey. He's in much better spirits. He and Miss Finch flew down to Cap d'Antibes for a holiday. A great success, seemingly.
Thank heavens for that.
And we get 3 new Rapides next week. I have to interview the pilots.
And there's Klaus.
Yes, a good idea of yours, that.
Thank you. But better not mention it to him till you've cleared it with Peter.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Mrs. Gates. That's what's needed before a round of golf.
Yes, I suppose you're right, sir.
No. Don't like the sound of that. Much heavy fighting on the Asturian front, west of Santander. Fierce resistance in the difficult mountain approaches, especially near Espinama, where casualties are said to be heavy. I hope Peter doesn't see this. Laura's unit was going to start operating west of Santander.
I don't mind so much about Peter, but let's hide the newspapers from Vicky. She's worrying enough about Laura as it is.
It's all right.
But of course. Goodbye. That was Julian Palmer. He's been delayed. Said not to wait lunch for him. Now, Phyllis, what about another drink to celebrate your victory over your husband?
Damn it, I did give her a stroke a hole. Though I must admit, you do get better every time.
Thank you, darling. I wonder how Mother's getting on with her old friend. Oh, poor Mrs. Gates. She was hoping to get away with poached eggs on toast for one, instead of which it's a feast for two.
Who is it, our visitor?
I don't know, but her name's Evelyn. I heard Mother talking to her on the telephone.
What is Gates doing?
Oh, he's bringing in some logs.
Oh, no, not now.
Oh.
There are plenty of logs, and it's not a cold day. Tell him to bring them later.
Very good, milady.
Not now, Fred, later.
Why later?
Well, her ladyship says so. She's expecting.
Well, don't tell me, I know. There's a ruddy great black Daimler coming up the drive. Maybe it's Queen Mary she's expecting.
Frank, go on with her. I thought I heard a car.
Yes, it was, milady.
Now, Mrs. Gates.
Yes, milady. Oh.
Lady Bourne?
Yes, sir. Is she expecting you?
I'm quite sure she is.
Who shall I say, sir?
Lord Evelyn Forbes.
Will you come this way, please, sir?
Okay.
Lord Evelyn Forbes, milady.
Evelyn. So you found your way?
My chauffeur is adept at reading maps. Even yours.
You can go, Mrs. Gates. I'll ring when we want luncheon.
Oh, yes, very good, milady.
Give yourself a drink, my dear. There's some Madeira, in case you still like it.
So you remembered that?
Yes, I remembered. Well, you were a good-looking young man, but now, how very distinguished you've grown.
And you're prettier than ever.
Now, that's nonsense, and you know it, that you don't.
It's nothing but the truth. To the remembrance of things past.
But not forgotten.
How long is it?
Since we first met. Very nearly 50 years.
Oh.
It's lovely to see you again. What induced you to write to me after all those years?
I happened to read in the Times that your address in future would be Larkfield Manor, so I presumed you'd gone back to your old home.
You remembered the address?
Just one I could easily forget after sending Christmas cards to you for nearly 50 years.
Yes, you only missed 1 year.
Oh, when was that?
1916.
Oh, 16. The Somme. I was with my brigade. I had written the cards as usual and arranged to send them back for posting, but the transport officer mislaid them.
How very careless of him.
Well, when I say mislaid, part of the mule train was blown up and my cards with it.
It was a horrible war.
All wars are horrible.
This one was particularly so. The mud, the rats, oh.
But not perhaps as bad as the war which may be coming.
Oh, my poor granddaughters. I do dread it for them. Elizabeth, my elder granddaughter, is training at the Royal Free Hospital. And already they've been warned about the thousands of casualties to expect from... what is it they call it?
Saturation bombing?
That's it.
So your granddaughter's training to be a nurse?
No, a doctor. She's a clever girl.
Good heavens, a doctor. Our mothers would have had a fit.
Well, Elizabeth's mother didn't like it much either. I approve.
There are 3 girls, aren't there?
Only 2 now. Our dear Anne...
Oh, yes, of course, I remember. I was out of England at the time. I only heard later.
She was a darling. Such a happy creature. She reminded me of my own youth. Do you remember? We had such fun.
Don't the modern young have fun, too? I seem to remember reading a few years ago about the bright young things.
Oh, that wasn't fun. That was showing off.
Oh, very probably. Are either of your granddaughters married?
Not yet. Liz has had 2 understandings with rather unsuitable young men. And Vicky, our baby, is in love with a German boy, Klaus von Heinig.
Oh, I know of the von Heinigs. It's a good family.
No money.
Really? And what worrying for you? A German in 1937 is not a good match. What does her father think?
Well, I think he hopes it'll die a natural death if he doesn't oppose it.
Very wise.
Be a dear and ring the bell for me.
Yes, of course.
It's just that. More, Madeira?
No, thank you, madam.
You rang, milady?
Yes, you can serve luncheon now, Mrs. Gates.
Very good, milady.
Give me a hand up, Evelyn.
You were wearing that colour the first time I saw you.
Yes. That's why I wore it today.
Coffee?
Please.
You have missed the most delicious lunch.
Oh, I'm quite sure of that. I'm sorry, I was late starting, and the traffic at High Wycombe and Oxford was absolutely appalling.
Are you sure you won't have anything to eat?
No, thanks. Mrs. Gates gave me a sandwich, and I dropped the luggage at Larkfield.
Well, how's Mother getting on with her old buddy?
Oh, like a house on fire. They were chatting away like mad.
An enthralling conversation about hats, I suppose.
Hats? Oh, I don't think so. Oh, Lady Bourne asked me to bring this over. It came by the midday post.
It's from Laura.
Oh, thank heavens.
Posted in Santander 10 days ago.
Took its time getting here?
I don't imagine she had much time to write letters.
Well, do read it.
What do you think we should?
Well, who's it addressed to?
The Bourne family.
Oh, that's all right then. Open it. Put Peter out of his misery.
Dear everybody, starting with Vicky. I'm making this a joint letter as, one way and another, it's difficult to find time to write properly. We got here about 2 weeks ago, and my goodness, it feels like 2 years.
I bet it does.
The journey out was easy enough, and when we got to the Spanish border, the scenery was unbelievable. It seemed hard to believe that this country was in the middle of a civil war, but when we reached Bustio, we believed it all right. Some of the villages were completely devastated, and the churches burnt out.
Yeah. And she's only 19.
I won't say much about the horrors. I try not to think about them, except to say they happen on both sides. I suppose it was naive of me not to expect this.
I did try to warn her.
This little town which we're in, I can't tell you its name because of censorship, but it has not been fought over much, though water is in fairly short supply, and there's no electricity. We have taken over a big building. I think it was a school. The local mayor has been very helpful. A beautiful Spanish officer has been attached to us, and Mary is having a violent affair with him, and he isn't the only one either. I can imagine. This war has had a very odd effect on her. She was such a mouse at school.
Sounds as though Laura's seeing life.
And death. I'm writing this in the kitchen at 3 a.m. by the light of an oil lamp. I'm on night duty, and the nights are very cold. In one of the wards, a wounded man is crying like a baby, and in the distance I can hear gunfire. Oh dear, I wish she hadn't gone.
Carry on reading, Phil.
Larkfield and the cedar tree seem in another world. Give Tallulah a pat from me. When I see some of the horses here, I'm glad to think of her safely in her meadow.
If I know Laura, the wounded horses will worry her as much as anything.
Tell Nanny I'm quite well and not to fuss. The worst thing is the lack of water. All we have in the way of liquid is a disgusting sort of orange drink and something that is called sherry, though I don't think the commander would recognize it as such.
Oh, that's too much. Disgusting wine on top of all the other horrors.
I'll write again soon. I expect you have written to me, but the letters haven't caught up yet. Much love to all of you, Laura.
There's some more?
No, there's just a P.S.
Then read it.
Oh, for pity's sake, Phyllis, read it.
P.S. Sorry this didn't get posted. A lot of casualties came in yesterday and we were busy. I've had a bit of a dust-up with Manfred over a young Irishman who was brought in by mistake. No one realized he was a Red. Manfred said to leave him and look after our own wounded first. We had a blazing row. I did what I could, but he died in the end.
Quelle expérience.
She wouldn't believe me. She wouldn't even listen.
There's another P.S. Stamps are frightfully difficult to come by as the post office is flattened. So I send a short letter to Peter. Please give it to him. Here it is.
Thank you.
Oh, I must get back to the mill house. I've got a carpenter there. What about you two? Can I give you a lift, by the way?
Oh, no, thank you. We've got my Buick.
I shall never forget June 88. I'd arrived at East Dean after lunch and I'd missed my train. I was making my apologies when you walked in from the garden. You were wearing a blue dress and your hair was the colour of corn. I suddenly lost the power of speech. Our hostess looked at us both and smiled and...
And she said, "Have you been struck dumb, Evelyn?" She knew perfectly well what had happened.
Then we went out into the garden and down to the lake where we found a punt.
And later we played croquet with two of the
And
other
you
kids.
trounced me soundly. The Prince was staying that weekend?
Well, naturally. Our hostess was one of his favourites.
On Sunday night he made a great fuss of you. I was wild with jealousy. Fortunately, he left on Monday morning and we stayed on.
And it was 2 nights later that you asked me to marry you.
In the conservatory after dinner. I'd been home that evening and spoken to my father, who'd given us his blessing.
But I said it must be kept quiet till the season was over.
Why, I wonder?
I don't know. Perhaps even then I knew that Billy was waiting in the wings.
When exactly did you meet him? Cowes, wasn't it?
That same summer. His ship was in.
What had he got that I hadn't? I've often wondered.
I think it must have been that you worshipped me and he ordered me about.
Ah. And of course he was older. 33 can seem very attractive to 20.
Did I make you unhappy, dear Evelyn?
Yes. Abominably so. I behaved as one did, as they said. 6 months leave on half pay, big game hunting. I did all the usual things. But although I mended my broken heart, I never fell deeply in love again.
I'm very sorry.
You needn't be. The life of a bachelor with money can be fun. It's only in the last few years that I've grown to regret not having married. I would like to have had grandchildren. As one gets older, one feels lonely.
One feels lonely even when one has got grandchildren. When one realizes that they're being kind, but you're no longer part of their lives. Especially if you've given up your own home.
Sounds as though the move from London was not a very good idea.
Perhaps not. But Arthur wanted the flat for himself. He's in the house now, you know, and it is very close. And then my daughter thought I ought not to be alone. My maid had grown too old.
You could have got another.
Yes, but it seemed easier to agree. When one grows old, one has to obey orders like a child. More coffee.
Thank you, my dear. I'm luckier than you. I've got no one to give me orders. So I'm thinking of trying to find a house not too far from here. Then we can meet quite often.
Evelyn, how delightful.
Even an old flame has his uses. I have tea at a little hotel I know the other side of Malvern.
Oh, I shall enjoy that. I've been rather shut in these last few weeks.
Lord Evelyn's chauffeur's back, my lady.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Gates. We did know. I shan't be in to tea.
Oh, very well,
Expect
lady.
me when you see me.
Would you prefer to go by the highways or the byways?
I leave it entirely to you, Evelyn.
Oh, I think the byways, don't you?
Well,
Gone off for a drive, have they?
for tea? Expect me when you see me, says her ladyship.
Well, I can take these then. Yeah, that was a turn up for the book, wasn't it?
Wasn't it just?
Yeah, well, she'll enjoy her little outing. Yeah, pity Nanny missed seeing her visitor.
Oh, well, she didn't. When the car came back, I nipped up and told her, and she had a look through the landing window. Hey, next time he comes round, she'll take good care not to spend day in bed.
Oh, so there's to be a next time, is there?
Oh, yes, I heard them arranging it at lunch.
Did you now? Well, let's hope the old gentleman, what's his name?
Lord Evelyn Forbes.
Lord Evelyn. Oh, that means his father's a marquis.
Oh, Fred.
Yeah, or even a duke.
Oh, I say, fancy that. Oh, and he's ever so sweet with her ladyship. Oh, you should have heard him talking about old times, see. Hey, Fred, you don't think they've,
You be your age, Eileen, and let them be theirs.
I say, Mrs. Gates, we passed an enormous old damer in the village, and I swear Granny was in it.
But she could not have been Vicky. It must have been a lady much like her.
No, it was Mr. Klaus. Her ladyship's friend turned out to be a gentleman, very handsome and a lord.
Gosh, how exciting.
You won't be wanting anything just now, Miss Vicky, will you?
No, thanks. Oh, thank you. Oh, I suppose the others are still at Layford.
Yes. I must read again what my father said in his letter to Mrs. Harkness.
It was nice of them to give it to you.
Yes, there was much in it that my father did not tell me in his letters to me.
Doesn't it worry you, Klaus, to think of your parents having to report to the police station so often and not being allowed a car and all that?
It does not worry me half as much as if they were still in one of the camps. Thank God they're at home. Play to me, Vicky.
What shall I play?
Oh, something gentle.
Where's Mrs. Gates?
Busy getting the dinner. Oh, she said, would you like a tray in bed? If so, I'll bring it up.
It would be rather nice.
Did you have a jolly drive?
Very pleasant.
Mrs. Gates said your visitor was very handsome.
Yes, he always was.
How long have you known him, Granny?
About 50 years.
Goodness. Granny, can I ask you a question?
Ask away.
Is he the one you told me about? The one you jilted?
Well, yes.
So you broke his heart?
Well, so he says. But in my opinion, he looks very well on it.
And gathering swallows twitter in the skies.
You read beautifully, Phil. It's a pleasure to listen to.
Yes, indeed. Delightful.
Is poetry your line of country, Captain? Shouldn't have thought a rugged sailor had much use for it.
Well, that's where you're wrong. When I was a watch-keeping lieutenant, I learned a great deal of verse. So did many of us.
There was a poem that always used to make me laugh at school. Julia, Julia, thy wondrous leg.
White and hairless as an egg.
That's probably Liz to say she can't come down for the weekend.
Yes, she's avoiding her family rather at the moment, and I can understand why.
What? Hello? Oh. Right. Yes. It's an overseas telegram. He's gone to find a supervisor. Apparently it was addressed to Brinchley in Hertfordshire. What? Hello? Hello? You know, this really is an appalling line. Maybe it'll be better if I try another extension. Yes, hold on. Jack, put it back as soon as I answer, will you?
It's sure to be from Laura.
Another glimpse of the obvious.
Please, Peter, Vicky meant no harm.
I'm sorry, but he must have been sent off days ago. God knows what might have happened since.
Melodramatic, aren't you, old boy?
Don't you understand? No, you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, perhaps it's only to say she's changed her mind and is coming home.
That sounds remarkably unlike Laura.
There's no need to rebuke Vicky, whatever she says.
What the devil name's the captain doing?
Steady, Peter.
Oh, what is it?
Tell us all.
Good or bad news? I presume it is from Laura.
Yes, from France. Bayonne. Evidently she got hold of someone who was leaving to send it.
For heaven's sake, read it, Captain Palmer.
Oh, well, it's a bit misspelled and a bit garbled, but this is the gist of it. Stranded Espinarme, a village in mountains, southwest Santander. Leg hurt, cannot move.
Oh, my God.
Unit left without me due to misunderstanding. If this reaches you, please wire consul, send help. Getting desperate and short of money. Laura.
That's the sort of telegram she sends. No wonder she's short of money. Hey, where are you off to?
Get the maps of Spain from the car. Does he have maps of Spain in his car?
Yes, he has maps of everywhere in Europe.
But surely Arthur has an atlas.
It's probably the wrong scale. I'll let Peter get his map. Give the poor fellow something to do.
Yes, he's very disturbed. I'm sorry.
Not surprising. Sounds as though Laura's well and truly stuck.
But even if there has been a misunderstanding, surely the famous Manfred would have sent back help.
Perhaps Manfred's no longer there to help.
Which map do we need?
Northern Spain, Asturias region, west of Santander, east of Bilbao.
Oh, this is it. What was the name of the village?
Espinarme.
I'm sorry, but am I not right to say that village was named as the newspapers yesterday?
You're quite right, my dear fellow. Heavy fighting and some bombing. Yes, I think it's time Arthur took a hand. If I can't get hold of him, I'll ring the Admiralty. Maybe there's a destroyer on non-intervention patrol. Anyway, don't worry. At least we know where the girl is.
There it is.
It's a long way from Santander, and very rough country by the look of it.
The coast road doesn't look too bad. And then it's not far once over the frontier.
Please, you must stop him.
Stop him doing what?
I think he intends to fly out to Spain.
Oh, Lord. In one of our rapides.
Of course. I would do the same if it were Vicky. Would you not if it were Mrs. Poole?
Ah, well.
But it would be madness for any of us, and it is madness for Peter to fly in a civil airplane into a zone of war without any permission.
Yes. Probably be shot down. Or at least forced down and imprisoned.
I don't think Peter's quite such a fool.
How's that, Vicky?
Well, that telegram is from the south of France. Why shouldn't he fly out there and then cross over the frontier like thousands of people do all the time? Did you get hold of Daddy?
Yes, he's trying to get hold of the consul at San Sebastian. He should be able to help.
If only he can.
You know, you're being very good, Vicky. Must be hellish for you. Laura's your friend.
Yes. Well, I suppose it must be worse for Peter. He's in love with her.
Would you ask Mr. Poole to come in now, please? Morning, Jack.
Morning.
Pull up a chair. It seems we have a great deal to discuss.
Yes.
This first item of yours. You recommend that we improve our security force.
Frankly, yes. We have a great deal of valuable freight from time to time. It's up to us to protect it.
Yes, I agree with you. You better get Peter in to discuss it.
Peter?
Well, this is his line of country. Would you ask Peter to come in, please?
Is he back so soon?
Back from where?
Well, I thought that he...
Yes? What? Are you sure? All right, thank you. She says Peter hasn't been in for the last 2 days.
No.
Oh, what's it all about, Jack? What's up? You obviously know more about it. Tell me.
I'm amazed Peter didn't tell you.
Now, come on, out with it.
Well, he was over at Larkfield a couple of days ago when a garbled sort of telegram came from Laura, who's injured.
In Spain?
Yes. A place called Espinarme. Peter rushed off in his car. Later, we telephoned Layford, and Parsons told us he'd changed into his flying kit and gone off to Birmingham, to the airfield.
To fly to Spain? Or at least to the frontier?
I imagine so.
Why on earth didn't he ring me?
I guess he thought you'd try to stop him going.
Yes, I would. Damn that Laura girl, dragging him into a civil war he's not even concerned with. Get me the Birmingham office, please, of Pool Aviation, and quickly. And why didn't you tell me?
I thought Peter would have told you. And I didn't want to interfere.
Didn't want to be bothered, more likely. Hello? Who's this speaking, please? Ah. It seems that 2 nights ago my son took off in a Rapide aircraft. Was it his own machine? What? Well, how do you know that? I see. Hang on, would you? It may interest you to know that my son's Rapide was reported as landing in Biarritz, which is just north of the frontier, 24 hours ago. And since then, he's disappeared.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, I was afraid you wouldn't be able to get away.
Fortunately, I've been given 3 days' leave of absence. Tell me, is there any news of Laura?
Oh, if anyone else asked me that, I should go raving mad.
Vicky, try not to worry so much.
How can I help it? It's days since Peter left and still no word. And now that news from part of Spain, it's so horrible.
I know, darling, I know. But we must be brave and hope. It's all we can do.
I don't know what I shall do if this beastly war does come. I expect I shall be in tears half the time.
Darling, here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, my poor little darling. Come out into the garden.
Don't you want any coffee or anything?
No. All I want to do is to try and cheer you up. Oh, it's a Queen Mary car again, isn't it?
Yes, it's Granny's gentleman friend. He's going to take her out for a drive. Let's go. My eyes must be red.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Gates.
Good afternoon, my lord. Will you go through, please?
Thank you.
Oh, Lord Evelyn. Mother will be down in a moment.
Oh.
What a beautiful afternoon you've brought with you.
Yes, the country is looking its best. Your garden does credit to your man Gates. Those dahlias.
I've just cut those. Actually, they're Arthur's special chore.
And the cedar tree, it's a magnificent specimen. What age is it?
About the same age as the house, I believe.
Ah.
That cedar tree. It's one of my earliest memories. Lying in my pram, looking up at the branches. I used to watch the doves flying in and out. And then when I was older, I got into terrible trouble trying to climb it.
We, met once, though you won't remember it.
Well?
I was staying nearby with some people called Hamilton. My hostess wanted to make some calls, and as one was on Larkfield, I offered to go with her. And she obviously thought I was a very polite fellow. She didn't realise I wanted to get a glimpse of her mother after 15 years.
Were you disappointed when you saw her again?
I never saw her. She was away, she and the Admiral. All we saw was a little girl of 5 in a Holland overall and long black stockings.
I was a little monster.
Nonsense, you were charming. You came up to us and said, would you like me to show you around the house?
And did I?
Unfortunately, Nanny appeared and vetoed the suggestion. But she did allow you to show us the garden, and very charmingly you did it too.
I wonder if Nanny remembers.
Indeed she does. We had a long talk about it the other day. She was kind enough to tell me that I looked a good deal older than the last time she saw me.
Oh, what a nerve. Nanny's no spring chicken.
Well, you two seem to have a lot to say to each other.
Hello, my dear. I was just reminding Mrs. Poole of the first time we met.
I know. Shall I show you the house? Oh, how Billy laughed when Nanny told him. He used to bore people at dinner parties with that story.
Yes, it's odd how people bore other people about their children.
I thought it a very funny story.
Oh, so did I, my dear, so did I.
Well, where are we going this afternoon?
Cheltenham?
sounds very nice, except I think I'd rather go to Broadway.
As you wish, my dear. Broadway it shall be. Shall we go?
Enjoy yourself.
Oh, Julian, you've met.
We have. Good sport?
Not bad at all. You two going out?
Yes, to Broadway. See you
we're
later,
going
no
out to
doubt.
tea.
Yes, of course.
Bye.
You called me, sir?
Yes, Mrs. Gates. 3 brace of partridge.
Oh, and they're lovely plump ones, too. Thank you, sir. I'll hang them at once.
Hello, Phil. Any news?
None. Arthur says no joy from the consul in San Sebastian. He simply can't trace them. Don't tell me no news is good news.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Please.
Now, where's Jack?
At the Birmingham office, holding the fort. Doing Peter's work. He says that poor old Geoffrey apparently is quite distracted, and I'm terrified that he'll send Jack out there to see what he can do, and then he'll be lost. First Laura, then Peter, then Jack. Funny if it wasn't so worrying. Oh, Julian, if Jack was lost, I don't know.
Don't worry, old girl, I'm not lost.
Oh, Jack.
And what's more, the others are home.
Home? You mean
Yes,
they've
they
arrived?
landed about an hour ago.
Well, how are they?
You see for yourself in a minute.
wonderful.
I hired a private ambulance for Laura for her leg to make her more comfortable. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where's Gates? Have you seen him? Gates! Gates, where are you? You're wanted. Oh, Peter, well done.
Oh, Gates, can you manage that?
Oh, goodness me.
You better call Vicky. This will be wide stiff.
Oh, my dear girl.
Help me, Peter.
Vicky, darling, quickly.
Yes, the sofa.
Thank you very much, Gates.
Here, careful on leg. I'll take your weight.
Yes, you better call the doctor.
Thank you. Oh, I can't believe it. It's all the same. I didn't think I'd see this room again. Or any of you. Oh, Peter, thank goodness you came.
Well, could I have Winchley 3-2, please? Dr. Bentley.
Laura. Oh, Laura, darling.
Laura, welcome.
This is Mrs. Paul from Larkfield Manor. If you could come at once, please. It is urgent.
What happened?
I'll tell you later. At the moment, all I want is a long hot bath. I haven't had one for weeks. A hot bath, food, rest. Then we'll talk.
I'd better get hold of Arthur again.
Oh, but let me speak to Geoffrey first, will you? He wasn't in when they touched down, and I'd like to be the first to tell him.
Yes. Jack. When? Oh, thank God for that. I was beginning to think. Yes, of course I'll kill my wife. I'm rather anxious to see my son again. When do you suggest? Well, I'll come then. Right away. Jack, he's all right, isn't he? All right, I'll see you very soon.
Oh, Miss Laura, you haven't eaten a thing.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Gates. My tummy must have shrunk. I haven't had much food for 10 days.
Well, tell us all about it, Laura.
Begin at the beginning.
What is the beginning? Well, the end, if it ever comes. I can't forget that it's all still going on. As far as I was concerned, the end began when we were sent to Espinama after the bombing. Oh, there were hundreds of casualties.
900 dead.
Yes. The streets were slippery. There's quite a lot of blood in 900 people.
Oh, Laura, don't.
We went off from Bustio in a unit of 10 ambulances. They were filled up in no time. We were just about to leave when I heard a child calling. I climbed over the rubble to find him. He was terrified and clung to me, and like a fool, I stumbled and fell. I couldn't get up again. I called to our unit, but no one heard. They were all busy packing up to go away.
What happened about the child?
Tell them, Peter, you know it all.
Well, a man came, a red. The child knew him and called out. And he hesitated at first, and then came and picked the child up. Then he looked at Laura and began to wonder whether
The child said something, and he smiled and put away his rifle. They both went away quickly behind the ruined church. And then, to my horror, I saw the ambulances start to drive away.
Leaving you behind?
Oh, not their fault. I had gone to find the child without telling anyone, strictly against orders. I stayed in the rubble for what seemed like hours. I was more or less hidden. I watched as the nationalists rounded up files of men in blue peasant blouses or mechanics' overalls.
Where were they taking them?
to the bull ring to be shot. They shot 1,800 of them.
My God. I I lay there for hours. I think I had a fever, but everything was a bit hazy. And then there was a lull, and I saw a woman and a man come
It
towards.
was the parents of the boy that she'd saved.
Yes.
The woman hid her in an outhouse, a sort of stable. She was risking her life, of course. I'll try and repay her if I can someday.
The telegram?
Well, I gave it and nearly all my money to her brother, who was a sailor and was going to Santander. That's the nearest port. He looked a bit villainous, and I wondered if he'd send it.
Oh, he did. It took days to reach us.
As soon as Peter knew where you are, he left.
I know. It took him days to find me. When he turned up, we meant to leave at once.
And then the fighting started up again, and some bombing as well. The car came in and copped it. So for 2 or 3 days, we were in the outhouse.
What did you talk about?
We talked about everything under the sun, except the war. I'd seen by then that both sides were as cruel as the other. I'd had enough.
We talked about plays and books. All of you. Cedar tree, tennis in the village, everything.
It all seemed so far away.
And then 2 days later, the fighting moved over to the west. Then the husband of the woman came and said there was a lorry going to Santander. If we could get Laura on it.
It was an awful drive. The lorry was carrying skins to the tannery. The smell.
We had to hide her on some filthy horse blanket, but we got there all right. And I took Laura to the hospital, have a proper splint put on her foot, and after a bit I managed to find a fishing boat that was going to Biarritz.
Well, you'd left the Rapide.
Yes.
Why didn't you let us know? I nearly had a fit when you asked for clearance this afternoon.
We'd almost begun to give up hope.
I'm sorry, it was awful. Somehow, all we wanted was to get home.
The fact was we entirely forgot.
Well, I don't blame you.
And now, bed. Got an X-ray at the hospital tomorrow. Dr. Bentley gave me a sleeping pill for you, if you want it.
No, thanks. I'll sleep the clock round.
Me too.
Hello, Lady Bourne.
Hello, Laura. How's your leg today?
Plaster off next week. We're going over to Layford for lunch. We'll meet you at the car, my darling.
With the greatest of pleasure. Excuse me, Lady Bourne.
Why, Granny, haven't you gone yet? Oh, Lord Evelyn is late. He said 12 o'clock, didn't he?
These flowers just came for you, milady, and a note.
Thank you, Mrs. Gates. Put the flowers anywhere. He says he's gone to Egypt to get a bit of sun into his old bones.
Oh, Granny.
Never mind, darling. Your grandfather, my Billy, always said that he was unreliable where women was concerned.
sure there's nothing I can get for you, my lady? Hot water bottle or what about a nice cup of tea?
Oh, do you know, I think I could enjoy a cup of tea.
I'll get it for you right away.
Thank you, Mrs. Gates.
Oh, is Gates back from taking the girls to the station yet?
No, miss. If he had been, I'd have sent him over to the church straight away.
Oh, the rector has been taken ill. I must find someone with a car to take him to the hospital.
Oh, my goodness. What about the ambulance?
Oh, no, apparently there's gone to a road accident at Watfield.
What's happened, Elizabeth?
Oh, Granny, I'm so sorry. I must telephone. Mr. Fuller was taken ill during the service.
Oh, seriously?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Oh, dear.
It would just happen when my own car's in the garage. Who can I ask?
There's Mr. Strange, Albury Motors.
Yes, of course. Hello, Mrs. Barkworth. Could you put me through to Mr. Strange, please? It's very urgent. He's what? Oh, well, yes, that's all right then. Yes, thank you. Oh, dear, thank heavens for that. Apparently, Dr. Bentley turned up and had got hold of Mr. Strange, and the rector's on his way to hospital.
Oh, that's good. I'll get your tea now, my lady.
Thank you. Now then, tell me exactly what happened.
Well, we were about 3/4 of the way through the service. Mr. Fuller had just walked over to the lectern to say a few words of thanks to you for presenting his altar cloths. Suddenly, he put his hand up like this and said, "I'm so sorry, but I must sit down for a few moments," and started swaying. Well, I thought he was going to faint. Daddy ran up and helped him to the vestry. He said he'd be all right after a few moments, but of course he wasn't.
What do you think was the trouble?
Well, I didn't examine him thoroughly, of course, but I'd say it was a heart attack of some kind. Well, he's been pretty groggy for some time now.
Oh, I know, poor old Morris. And what about the service?
Oh, Daddy took over as church warden. Fortunately, the district nurse was there, and she stayed with Mr. Fuller while I came out to organise a car. How is he?
I don't know, dear. They've taken him to Horbury Hospital. He's looking a bit shaky, I'm afraid, Mother.
Poor man.
Yes, he was saying in the vestry, Dr. Bentley had been telling him for months he should ease up.
Oh, he'll have to now.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I don't want to sound selfish, but one must be practical. This could not have happened at a worse time.
In what way, Arthur?
Well, I imagine he'll be off for, a month at least. And that means mountains of work for Rosie Carton and myself. And if I have to go off somewhere, which is likely, leave her to it, I think I'd better telephone her in a moment.
I don't understand. Why should the rector's illness make work for Rosie?
She's the other church warden, Granny.
Oh, yes, of course, I forgot. She's not exactly the usual church warden type, is she?
I remember you said once that they get terribly involved when a new rector has to be appointed.
Yes, it's almost like a full-time job. No, the thing that worries me is that we have to be exceptionally careful if we do have to choose a new rector. See, this living, it's worth over 800 a year. Free house, various other perks. That's a very good income for anyone these days.
Well, there won't be any lack of candidates.
No, I'm sure there won't be, Mother. But we had to be sure and get the right candidate. See, it's not like a Liverpool Dockland parish where only a dedicated priest would serve. It's what you might call a cushy billet. Now, we need a labourer who'll be worthy of his hire. However, the situation hasn't arisen yet. Meanwhile, I'd better get on to Rosie. Tell her we may have a lot of work on our hands.
Personally, I think the best thing would be for Morris Fuller to retire now. He can't expect to carry on much longer, and then your father could get this business of choosing the new rector settled once and for all.
Yes, I quite agree, Granny.
Brought your tea, my lady.
Thank you, Mrs. Gates.
Oh, thank you, miss.
Yes, I'm sorry it occurred so suddenly.
Mind you, he's been muttering about retirement for ages, of course.
Arthur, when I agreed to become church warden, you assured me it was purely nominal.
I had my doubts about it at the time.
Oh, Rosie, I know, but the owners of Larkfield and Larkfield have always been the two church wardens.
A tradition of the village.
Well, yes, it's pretty silly when you appoint someone like myself. I should never have agreed to it. I've become involved in a lot of village matters, and
This is one job too many.
I say, you are upset.
well, yes, I am, really. How exactly will I be involved if Morris
Does retire.
Well, I've got most of the parish papers here, and if you'd like to drop over for an hour in the morning, and then I'll explain. You see, Rosie, fact is, I may have to leave at very short notice.
Get it too long.
What?
Well, a PPS doesn't just put his feet up during a parliamentary recess, you know.
Well, is it very complicated, all this church paperwork?
No. No. I'll explain when I see you. Shall we say 10 o'clock?
Yes.
Oh, good morning, Mrs. Cartland.
Good morning, Mrs. Gates.
The commander is expecting you.
Thank you.
It's a lovely morning, isn't it, after such a freezing night?
Rosie. Ah, my dear, how kind of you to call.
Good morning, Alfred.
Well, I got all the papers laid out in the study, if you'd like to go through. Would you like a cup of coffee?
No, thank you.
I see.
Good morning, Nanny.
Good morning, Mrs. Cartland.
Well, it's a lovely morning, isn't it? Although I fear we may have lost the second hay crop almost totally. How many acres did you have down to hay this summer?
Is that Lady Bourne's trainer?
It is that, and she doesn't seem to have eaten a thing, does she?
Oh, dear, I do hope there isn't anything seriously wrong.
Well, I had this short note from Morris this morning. He feels he must resign immediately, retire to that little cottage of his at Worthing we've heard so much about.
How long will he be in hospital?
About 3 months, apparently. He's better, but I clearly must not go on and would ask the parochial church council to accept my resignation forthwith. I am writing to the patron of the living separately and must apologise for the lack of proper notice. Poor fellow. Handwriting's most terribly shaky.
I am so sorry I was so brusque last night. My first thought should have been for Morris.
Yes, you're a bit growlish, weren't you?
I must send him some flowers. Such a nice man.
Parish owes him so much.
What does he mean by patron of the living?
Oh, that is the man whose job it is to choose the new rector.
Oh, the bishop did that.
Oh, Lord, no. No, Bishop gives him the job, but the right and duty of choosing him is still exercised by one of the oldest families in the village, the Marshes. Though they haven't lived here for generations.
Not live here?
No, not since the last century. Used to live in your house.
Then what right have they got to choose the new rector?
Ah, now that's the right of advowson, it's called. That's a very ancient right, you know. It's passed down from father to son, rather like a piece of property. Now, while that is being sorted out, we as church wardens have to keep the ship afloat.
Good gracious.
Oh, it's all right. Now, we take out what is called a writ of sequestration, and then we have to arrange for various floating clergy to take the services. Oh, put them up and feed them. And then there's the church lands to administer. And then the charities to pay. Christenings, marriages and burials to be arranged. Rents and tithes to be collected. Insurances to be paid. No, it's all right, Rosie. I will do it, yeah. Well, so long as I'm here.
Oh. I really think you ought to see Dr. Bentley.
No, darling. It's nothing. It's just a chill.
Yes, but you hardly had any breakfast.
I had all I wanted.
Oh, Granny.
It's all right, really. I'm saving my appetite for the dinner party tomorrow night with Phyllis and that brash husband of hers.
Will you be well enough for that?
Of course I will. It's your father we've got to take care of now.
Daddy?
Yes. A parliamentary recess is supposed to be a holiday. Heaven knows he needs one. But I know what a vacancy in a living can mean to a church warden. Arthur's going to have more trouble over that than he's ever had being a PPS.
Now, the main thing we have to decide is the sort of chap we think would be right to have as rector here.
A good stout clergyman, sound in wind and limb.
Oh, good heavens, no, it's not as simple as that.
Does the patron of the living actually take any notice of what we say? I mean, if it's his job to choose the rector.
Oh, Lord, yes. Now, the way it works is this. Parish decides what it wants. In practice, that means you and I decide. And then I telephone round the various members of the church council, and they say, yes. I telephone the patron of the living, he says yes. And then we get on to the bishop's secretary, and they try and find someone to fit the bill.
What if he doesn't agree with our choice?
Well, of course he'll agree. I mean, why shouldn't he?
Oh, it does seem a most extraordinary way of going about things.
Well, Rosie, my dear, I assure you it is utter misery unless we are decisive. And the sooner we get it over, less agony for all.
Including me.
Including you. Now then, Morris is a wonderful chap. Served us extremely well. But what I think we need now is a dedicated priest who's not only prepared to serve the parish, but a younger man who will not find it so exhausting as poor old Morris.
A younger man?
Married, of course, at such a large rectory.
A younger married man?
Oh, not too young. You need a man with some experience.
A married man of about 45?
Children, of course. I think boy and girl would be ideal. Right, stipend 820 a year, so we can afford to aim high, and on that they can afford staff. Right, I'll ring the patron then, shall I?
Oh, yes, Arthur, that's all.
Yeah, that's all. I'm very glad you agree with everything.
Yes, well.
And then I thought some of your treacle tart, Mrs. Gates. That's always very popular.
Very good, miss.
I'll ring Cooper's and get them to dress a crown of lamb. Oh, and it might be as well to have some standby food ready, as the commander calls it. I've an idea it's going to be rather an unsettled week.
It's a good thing you were here, miss. I mean, with her ladyship being poorly and the other young ladies away.
Oh, there you are. I've a telegram for you, dear.
For me?
Yes, yes. Runs young Bobby Barkworth didn't bring it up in his bag.
Oh, that's too bad. Mr. and Mrs. Poole want to bring a couple of friends with them to stay. Daddy, Phyllis is the limit. She's just wired to say she and Jack want to bring a couple of friends to stay.
Oh, Lord, yes.
You knew?
Yes, she mentioned it last time she telephoned, didn't I tell you?
Oh, Daddy, you are the limit.
Well, my dear, I've had some news as well.
Oh, what?
But you remember Ralph Marsh, the patron of the Livy?
Yes, vaguely. What about him?
Well, he has completely turned down our choice for a new rector. Over his dead body, were his exact words.
Can he do that? But why?
I don't know. We'll soon find out why. He's invited himself to tea this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commander Bourne.
Good afternoon. Do please come in.
Thank you.
Can I take your coat for you?
Oh, thank you very much.
There
we are.
Oh, please come in.
Oh.
Oh, Rosie, this is Ralph Marsh, the patron of the Livy. Mrs. Carton, the People's Warden.
How do you do?
How do you do, Mrs. Cartland?
Oh, please do sit down. There's some tea on the way.
Thank you.
Well, perhaps we might get straight down to business.
Mrs. Gates says 5 minutes.
Oh. Good afternoon, Miss Bourne.
Hello.
I think you must have been just leaving the school when we last met.
Yes, I think I was.
There's something I'd like to say first of all, Commander Bourne.
Yeah?
Well, the last time I was here, I threw my weight about, patronized people, and generally behaved very badly.
You were rather difficult.
Yes, I know. Will you please accept my apologies?
Yes, certainly. Make it a lot easier for us to talk now.
Thank you very much. And you, Miss Bourne?
Well, I don't know what you've got to apologise to me about. I was only a child at the time, but of course I accept.
Well, thank you both very much. Thank you. I had just inherited at the time, quite unexpectedly, and I'm afraid it rather went to my head. In fact, I was terrified. 7,000 acres, scores of tenants, 150 employees. There's quite a responsibility at the age of 21.
Oh, I can imagine.
How on earth did you cope?
Well, luckily, I have an excellent agent who nursed me through, so not too many bones were broken.
You got everything under control?
Yes, I think so. And of course, I get enormous satisfaction out of being involved.
Oh, of course.
Which is why I was so interested in what you telephoned me about.
Yeah. The custom nowadays is for absentee patrons to surrender their duties to the bishop's office.
Yes, so I believe.
You don't agree with that?
Commander Bourne, I would not dream of opposing your suggestions for a new rector without good reason.
Yes, but you haven't given us a reason. Now, surely Mrs. Cartland and I know the village very much better than you do.
Oh, I should say one English village is very much like another.
Oh, that's you're right.
Parochial church councils always say they want a married man 45 with 2 children. It's an ecclesiastical joke.
Oh, really?
Exactly the same in the village where I live and throughout the diocese.
And what is wrong with a married man of 45 with 2 children?
Nothing, as far as I can see.
Well, then why did you object in our case?
Because I have someone particular in mind to whom I want to present to this living.
Whom you think would be right for this village?
Yes.
You don't sound very certain.
Well, you may find the idea difficult to accept at first, but I do ask you to consider it for at least 24 hours before commenting.
What if we don't agree?
Well, I hope it won't come to that.
But if it did?
Then I should have to insist.
Can he do that?
I should have to look it up.
You can, of course, appeal to the bishop if you disagree.
Yes, we would certainly do that.
Good Lord, that's a bit low, isn't it?
That's a bit Pools, if I'm not mistaken.
Commander Bourne's sister.
Yes, I expect you remember her. She married an amateur pilot.
Oh, yes. I'm afraid I've come at rather an inconvenient...
No, not at all. No, we want to get this business over as soon as possible. although it looks as though we're not going to have much chance to talk at the moment. Would you like to stay and dine? Then we could have a session afterwards?
Well, I'd love to, but I'm afraid I haven't come.
No, not at all. We won't change tonight. Huh?
Well, in that case, thank you very much.
Good heavens, two of them?
Yes, that'll be their friends.
Yes, that's a gentle hint to our man Gates, to go down with the car and pick them up when they land in the lower meadow. Now, look, we've still got a few minutes. Now, who is this chap that you've got in mind?
Ralph Marsh. How do you do?
Lady Bourne.
You must forgive a feeble old woman for not being down to welcome you when you arrived.
Please, not at all.
I've been hearing from my good friend Eleanor Fitzallen just how well you're managing the Deering Park estates. She lives not far from you at Worcester and does my spying for me.
Ah.
How nice to see you. Still playing cricket?
Well, occasionally, yes. Only village cricket, of course.
Oh, there's a lot to be said for it. And how do you think my family is looking?
Lady Bourne? Yeah, come and collect that bed cover.
Hello. Is this the Herefordshire headquarters of Poole Aviation Limited? Oh, I am so sorry.
Not at all, Phil. Come along in. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Rosie.
I'm so glad you're all safely.
Well, I expect you remember Ralph Marsh, my sister Phyllis, now Mrs. Poole.
Oh, yes, indeed I do.
How are you, Mrs. Poole?
Well, I'm very glad to be on the ground. My tummy's still somewhere up there. You haven't met my husband, have you, Jack? This is Ralph Marsh, an acquaintance of the family.
How do you do?
Mr. Poole?
Now, I must introduce our friends who just terrified Herefordshire with their death-defying tactics in Poole Aviation's finest light aircraft. Mrs. Dennis and Katie Biggins, otherwise known as my best pilot and his missus. Well, there you are, you two. Now, this is your immediate host, my brother-in-law, Arthur.
I'm very pleased to meet you, sir.
How do you do?
It's very kind of you to invite us.
Yes, it is really.
Not at all. No, it'll just add to the fun. And now, this is my mother, Lady Bourne, Mr. and Mrs. Biggins, a very great friend and neighbour, Mrs. Cartland, and Mr. Marsh, who is here to discuss church business.
Ah, yes. Restoration fund or something like that.
No, the appointment of a new rector, actually.
But don't say old Morris Fuller's packed it in at last.
I'm afraid so.
Dead?
No, certainly not. But he had a heart attack and he's had to retire. Phyllis, why don't you ring for some more tea? I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Biggins would like some.
Not for us, thanks. We had some at Hendon only an hour ago.
Oh, really, the speed of modern journeys.
Katie, would you like to come up and see your room? Thanks, I'd love to. I'll come with you, Phil. Oh, good.
You're staying for dinner?
Yes, I am. See you later.
Well, shall we all sit down?
I'm sorry, Katie, what were you saying?
Well, Jack said if Mr. Cartland wants us in Birmingham to discuss the new contracts, we'd better all go together. New contracts?
Yes, now that Jack's based permanently in London.
He wants Dennis as his chief flight executive, and Mr. Cartland said yes, in principle.
Oh, I see. So you're going to sort out all the details?
That's it. And to give the Bigginses a holiday. They've been working like beavers down in Nice all through the season, and they deserve it.
But why come to Larkfield? I mean, I'm sure Daddy's pleased to see you.
Oh, that was Jack's idea.
It was terribly kind of you to give Ralph Marsh a bed.
Not at all. You're certainly overcrowded here, aren't you?
Well, we didn't really think that he would be going to ask to stay. After all, he only lives about 20 miles away. He could easily have come over again tomorrow. But Arthur was so pleased. He does so want to get this question of the rector settled.
Oh, would you like some coffee?
No, thank you, darling. It'll keep me awake. You have some. All right.
We thought while we're in the country, we ought to get some fresh air. And what we would like, most of all, is to see a fox hunt. So that could be our Saturday treat. You know, a real fox hunt with everyone dressed up in top hats.
But the season doesn't start until November.
Oh, but Phyllis said young foxes.
Oh, cubbing. Well, that's hardly the same thing.
It's hunting little foxes.
Yes, at 4 in the morning.
4 in the... Oh, hardly worth going to bed, is it?
Liz, I'm taking Marsh into the study for a few minutes. Do you think Mrs. Gates might bring us some coffee in there?
Oh, yes, of course, Daddy. What about Jack and Mr. Biggins?
Oh, I do wish you'd call him Dennis.
Yeah. Well, now, the other two are staying in the dining room for a bit.
Katie, some more coffee.
Oh, love that.
And if you dears will forgive me, I'm going up to my room.
Oh, Granny.
Darling, I'm perfectly all right, just a little stiff, that's all. But I'm not going to say goodbye to anybody. I'm just going to slip away so not to be noticed.
Good night.
Thank you. Well, as I said, you might find it difficult to accept the idea of the man I want to present to this living.
Marsh, who is it?
My cousin.
I see. Well, there's a very long tradition of patrons presenting close relatives.
Yes. He was trained as a Lutheran pastor.
Lutheran?
Yes. He's German.
Oh, I see.
An aunt of mine married a German a few years before the war and settled out there. This is her son. Brilliant man, speaks fluent English. He's been appallingly persecuted for outspokenness against the Nazis. Seen some friends smuggled him out of Germany 3 months ago. They've been staying with me since.
There?
He and his wife.
No children?
No.
How old is he?
27.
Well, Marsh, I'm sure he's an excellent fellow. But as a parish priest in an English village like Winchley...
Will you at least meet him?
No, there's no point.
I do feel very strongly about this.
Well, my dear fellow, so do I. The idea is out of the question.
My family made very large endowments to this parish, out of which the rector's stipend is paid.
Well, if you want to go over my head...
I've already spoken to the Archdeacon.
Have you indeed?
He said he'd be willing to help at any time. In fact, he gave me his home telephone number.
We have to get this thing over as soon as possible. Perhaps we should telephone him now.
Very well. Yes. There we are.
Yes? Who is it?
Just me, Lady Vaughan.
Oh, it's you, Nanny. Come in. I was just going to bed. What is it?
Well, I was just wondering if you were all right.
Yes, I'm just a little tired, that's all.
Don't you think you ought to see the doctor?
Oh, no, I don't see any necessity of that at all.
Oh, I thought maybe you were in pain.
Well, we all have flakes and pains at our age, but nothing to worry about.
You know, I've got some very good pills if you ever are in pain, Lady Vaughan. They're much more effective than anything else.
Well, thank you, Nanny. I'll remember if I should need them.
Well...
Liz, whatever is that noise?
Oh, it's Jack and Phyllis and friends having a little party in the drawing room.
I think they thought we were too staid.
Well, there'll be one more at the party tomorrow. The Archdeacon.
Is he coming here?
Yes, he's coming for lunch. It seems I may have to resign as church warden.
Daddy, why?
Because he supports Marsh.
But if you do all that work in the...
Yes, yes, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Just look at it.
Well, do you think we should cut our losses and get off back to London after you've seen Geoffrey?
There doesn't seem to be much point in staying on here, I must admit. I don't fancy playing golf in that. Or even walking round with a gun.
Dennis and Katie will be very disappointed.
Well, I can't help the weather.
Oh, now, lover, there's no need for that. But if you'd promised them a wonderful stay in the country, hot buttered toast round the fire, walks through golden autumn woods, mushrooms, a board stiff.
Well, perhaps we'll see Geoffrey and then push on back to London. But I've got to see old Arthur first.
Oh, yes.
What do you mean, oh, yes?
Well, it was your real idea of staying here, wasn't it? Tackle Arthur about the ticket agency.
Well, kill two birds with one visit.
Hmm.
Well, I can't ask Geoffrey again, and someone's got to help. We won't get the confidence of the airlines unless we get a few respectable names.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My goodness, you do look rough.
We stayed up till 3.
Playing cards. We're going to stay up till 4 then, go off and watch the fox clubbing. But when we looked out of the window, it's all that dark and rain.
Poor little foxes, we thought. Doesn't look too promising, does it?
No, we've just been talking about that.
Is there any chance of any breakfast, do you think? What are the rules of the establishment?
The rule of the establishment is that if you want breakfast, you're down by 9.
9?
But you might persuade Mrs. Gates to make you some black coffee. You look as though you need it.
Thank you.
Extraordinary pack of cards. There's another ace of diamonds.
Could be quite useful.
Is it lifting?
No, not at all.
I was thinking last night, why don't we try Ralph Marsh as well?
The agency?
Why not? We need posh names on the letterhead, the more the merrier. The way he talks, he's quite open to new ideas.
I hardly know the fellow.
No harm in trying. He's got his eye on your niche, you know.
Elizabeth?
Crafty old Dennis does miss these things.
Of course, the thing I'd really like to see most of all is Crest of the Wave. Though Vogue says it's impossible to get tickets.
I'd like to see either of the Knoll card plays. And Jack could take us to supper afterwards at the Ivy.
The Ivy? What's that?
It's a restaurant where theatre people go. The problem is now what to do about this weather.
Why don't we have a card school, a real one? Make ourselves cosy round the fire.
Poker.
Oh, yes.
Morning, Mrs. Gates. That commander's breakfast?
Oh, no, sir. He had his breakfast hours ago.
You mean he's up?
Oh, he's been up and working since 8 o'clock this morning. On the telephone, mainly, making arrangements about the Archdeacon.
Did you say Archdeacon?
Yes, Mrs. Poole, I did. He's coming for lunch.
Such a jolly party.
Baptism expenses have to come out of the diocesan stipend fund. Since we can't touch the sequestration account until the writ's been returned. Oh, my dear chap. Someone has got to pay, all right? Right, well, then that's agreed then, is it? Well, thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gates.
Sir, can I just discuss the arrangements for lunch with you, please?
Could you talk to Miss Elizabeth about that?
Well, she's gone out, sir. Mr. Marsh called for her quite early this morning. I don't know where they went.
Oh.
Well, I thought the pheasants, followed by clerical pudding.
Well, that sounds highly appropriate. Clerical pudding? Oh, what is that?
Suet, mostly.
Well, so long as I don't have to bless it. Mrs. Gates, if you do find out where Miss Elizabeth is, you might let me know.
Oh, yes.
Believe me, I wouldn't push the matter like this if I didn't think he'd be very good for Winchley.
But a man of 27.
And your cousin.
Yes, well, that I admit does count against him.
No, not against him.
But it does open an obvious line of objection, doesn't it? And I do admit I want very much to help him. Look, you haven't met him yet. Neither of you have.
You haven't even told us his name.
It's Haydn. Dieter Haydn. He had his own church in Dusseldorf, where he preached openly against the Nazis for 2 years, until they threw him into Dachau. It seems the church authorities got his release after 8 months. Some friends smuggled him to England. Well, the first I heard about it was when I got a telephone call from Dover, reverse charges. I drove straight down there, Found them sitting at the docks with a small cardboard box which contained everything they possessed. Look, he really is terrific. Got a marvellous sense of humour. You'd never imagine he's been through what he has.
Why do you think he'd be good for Winchley?
Well, firstly, because he's energetic, dedicated, and good. And secondly, because he'd wake things up. He's seen it all. I can tell you, England hasn't the least idea what's about to hit her.
I don't think that's an argument that would convince Arthur.
But we must at least get Commander Bourne to meet him.
Oh, I know when he's dug his heels in.
Oh, sometimes he needs his head banging.
Well, you could see him.
By myself.
I could drive you over there now. Wouldn't take half an hour.
Oh, Arthur would be furious.
Yes, I'm afraid he would. All the same, I think you should meet him, Rosie.
All right.
Marvellous. Well, I'll just let them know we're coming. May I use your phone?
Oh, please, hope so.
Lovely. Now, what time should I say we'll be there?
Leave in about half an hour.
I don't think I've ever met an archdeacon before.
Well, they're perfectly harmless. Yeah, they're great diplomats, most of them, and charming men.
Are they reverends?
Venerables, actually.
Oh, cripes.
You call him Mr. in conversation, of course. And this chap's name is Fulford Brown, so you either call him Mr. Fulford Brown or Mr. Archdeacon. And all I ask is, don't blaspheme about the place too much, don't sing lewd songs in the bar too loudly.
Why is he staying?
Highly likely, Phil. We've got to get this matter sorted out.
I see.
Actually, Arthur, we were thinking of moving on, going back to London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, the weather's such a washout, and if this jolly archdeacon's coming to lunch to talk business...
Right. Mrs. Gates has got lunch for all of us, you know, so I really don't think you can leave until this afternoon at the earliest.
I see. Arthur, there is something I want to talk to you about before we leave.
Oh, Jack, can't you wait?
It'll only take a few moments.
All right, well, shall we go into the study for a few minutes, but can you make it brief?
Right.
I suppose he'll say grace.
Well, I think I'd better go and tidy myself up.
A ticket agency? I don't understand.
A way of booking airline tickets through a central office.
Oh, I see. Instead of ringing around to each separate line as you have to now.
Exactly. If you want to go to Paris now, for instance, you may have to telephone half a dozen different companies, each with their own regular flights.
Sure, this sounds like a very good idea. I don't see quite how you want to involve me.
Well, to launch a venture like this, you need, you need style. I'd like you to be a director.
A director?
Oh, purely nominal, of course. You know, name on the letterhead, that sort of thing. Commander Bourne, DSO, MP, etc.
Oh, I see.
Well, you may have to take out a few shares to comply with the law, say £20 worth.
Oh, Lord. Now, that'll be my visitor.
Now, what do you say, Arthur?
Oh, Jack, I don't know. Let me think about it. Let you know.
She really is a terrific sport.
Oh, you did a terrific job of converting her. She wouldn't do it unless she believed in it.
Well, it was kind of you to back me up.
Well, this village is too complacent. It needs someone like your cousin.
Right, I'm ready.
Well, we'll go via Larkfield and drop you off for lunch with the church, Elizabeth.
Yes, that's something I'm not looking forward to.
Well, I'm a married man of a little over 45 with 2 children. I can't see anything wrong with me.
No, of course not.
You may laugh, but many think differently. It's an image of piety, you see. Well, look at the way those other 4 guests of yours sat painfully minding their P's and Q's throughout the meal, and then ran off at the first possible moment, unable to stand it any longer.
I'm afraid that's my fault. No, I told them to behave themselves.
Oh, but that's it, you see. That's the terrible reputation the dear old church has. Well, you'll forgive me speaking out, Miss Bourne.
Oh, no, it's very refreshing.
Oh, refreshing. Thank you. Yes, but the patron. Now, the patron should be here for these consultations.
Well, I'm very glad he's not, you know, because I feel outnumbered.
Exactly my plan.
You say you've met this German fella?
Yes, I have. And, well, before we go any further, let me say quite clearly that the final decision in this matter is not mine, whatever happens. I merely report to the bishop. Mind you, if he doesn't do as I suggest, I kick him in the shins. Yes, but it makes no difference. I merely report. And let me report to you, my dear sir, that Dieter Haydn is a first-class fellow.
Yes, but the question is he right for Winchley?
I would say yes. Your patron thinks so, too. And what about your fellow churchwarden, Mrs. Cartland, is it? Oh, Oh, will we bore you, Miss Bourne, if we discuss this?
No, not in the least. But if you'll excuse me, I'll go up and see how my grandmother is. She's not been too well for the last day or two.
Oh, I am sorry to hear it. But thank you for the most delicious luncheon.
Not at all. I'll see you later.
I do hope so.
Oh, Nanny, Lady Bourne wants some wrapping paper. I haven't got any. Have you got any tucked away? Hey, what's the matter?
Oh, Irene, I'm so worried for her.
About Lady Bourne?
Yes. I was in her room yesterday, and oh no, I can't see it.
No, you must, love, if it's important.
Well, our wardrobe was open, and there were 8 bottles of whiskey in there. Oh, she's drinking, I'm sure of it.
Oh, no, nonsense.
Oh, yes, she's drinking because she's in pain with this illness of hers. Now, I didn't want to bother him just now, but I'll have to speak to the commander.
And young Ralph March, how do you find him?
He's not so young, Granny. He must be getting on for 35.
He's young enough. He's very eligible, too, you know.
Oh, Granny.
Lovely estate. And he's lonely, too.
Now, how on earth can you know that?
I have my spies.
The bishop is quite firm about it. He thinks we must accept the refugee German pastors, and I'm bound to say I agree. Some parish must start the ball rolling.
Not Winchley.
They really are men of the highest caliber.
And I would hate to think that we had some rector foisted on us for purely external church politic reasons.
You haven't even met the fellow yet, have you?
Nor do I intend to. It would be pointless.
Sounds alarmingly like your final word on the subject.
Yes, I'm afraid it is. And when you speak to the bishop, you might hand him my resignation as well.
Oh, Commander Bourne.
No, I don't think we have anything further to discuss, do we? Hello, Rosie.
How long have you been here?
About half an hour. Parson sent me in, gave me a drink.
Good. Look, I'm sorry I wasn't at the lunch with the Archdeacon. Liz did give you my message, yes?
Yes, I understand you had to rush off somewhere unexpectedly in a great hurry.
Yes, that's more or less right. Are those what I think they are?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I have no option but to resign. Well, now, legally, all those papers pass into your charge. But in fact, Paul Harvey will probably be appointed in my place within the week, so you don't need to feel at all involved.
No, but I am. I'm starting to feel very involved.
Oh, is that why you went to see the contentious Per Hyden?
Oh, I might have known that you'd guess.
Oh, it's not very difficult, is it? A secret meeting between you, Liz and Marsh, probably in this room?
Oh, Arthur, there was nothing secret about it.
And then you driving off somewhere mysterious, returning unexpectedly after 2.5 hours? Well, I suppose you're now going to tell me that Herr Hyden is the ideal man to be rector of Winchley. Well, please don't trouble yourself, my dear Rosie, because it is no longer my concern. I just feel it's a thousand pities that you had to go about it in this way.
What do you mean?
Well, it wouldn't have hurt, would it, to get on the telephone and tell me what you intended to do?
Oh, yes, and have you say I know nothing about it and kindly leave these matters to you. In other words, mind my own business.
Now, Rosie, I know this village.
You know a lot about this village, but there's an awful lot that you don't know about it. I mean, the very fact that you're squire, rector's warden, sit on the bench and everything gives you a very blinkered, conventional point of view of it all. Yes, I did see Dieter Hyden. And yes, I was very impressed by both him and his wife.
Yes, well, I don't think I really want to hear about it.
Arthur, you have always said we want a hard-working, dedicated man.
But an Englishman.
Your letter of resignation won't have reached the bishop yet.
Oh, no.
No, and he won't accept it at once. He'll give you 2 days to think it over and then telephone.
Well, he'd be wasting his breath.
Yes, perhaps. But until he does accept it formally, you are still church warden, aren't you?
So, you talked to Herr Hyden?
Yes. He's very honest,
Very open, engaging. He laughs a lot. So does his wife. Arthur, I think he's very shrewd about people. I think he could handle them very well. And he loves this country. He wants to stay here until the war is over. He talks about the war as if it's already started.
And what happens to the Germans in this country when it does? Do you remember 1914? Every German shop in London with its windows smashed and the contents scattered all over the street.
Arthur, you can't begin to compare
now, the
that.
barriers are already there, Rose. And what you must see is that the barriers don't exist in Herr Haydn, but in us, the English. Now, he would never be able to do his job properly, because too many ordinary people in the village would never accept him. It's got nothing to do with his qualities.
Arthur, you have not listened to one word that I have said. Now, will you please listen properly? Thank you. Now then.
No sound of gunfire from Layford Park yet?
Oh, I didn't think it'll get to that point.
Oh, I think there'll be a fair old hammer and tongs, though. Mrs. Cartland was determined to convince him. I've never seen a woman more determined.
He won't retract his resignation.
Well, she might persuade him.
Do you think so?
Yes. They're a good match, those two.
What?
I mean it. They'd make a good match for each other, as far as I could see.
In the short time that you've been here?
Oh, one gets feelings about people, vibrations. Commander Bourne is a remarkably civilized man in the best English tradition. It's the thing I admire about him more than anything. You've never seen my place at Daring, have you?
No.
Well, it would give me great pleasure if you would come to lunch one day.
Well, it's a bit difficult at medical school.
Of course, yes. Silly of me.
But no, I'd love to come. Thank you.
Ah, just the man I'm looking for. Can I ask you a favour? Could you possibly run us down to the Lower Meadows in your car?
To your aeroplanes?
That's right. Gates has taken Arthur over to Layford, so heaven knows how long he'll be.
Well, what time do you want to leave?
As soon as we're ready. 20 minutes?
Righto.
You're leaving now?
Yes, we're going over to Birmingham, see Geoffrey, and then push on back to London.
Oh, incidentally, I haven't had time to think about your offer yet. Can I call you in London?
Yes, do. Call me at home. The telephone number is...
Just a sec. Get my notebook.
Jack, what Arthur? Don't you go involving him in one of your deals.
Steady on, old girl. Just a business suggestion. I say, are you gone on him?
Oh, don't be absurd. It's simply that his great-grandfather and mine were close friends.
I dare say. And my great-grandfather knew Lord Palmerston, but we're not living in the 19th century now.
Right you are.
What? That's a telephone number. Yeah, it's Langham 2315.
Right.
Oh, that's everything.
Ah, there you are. Marcia said he'll run us down to our planes if we get a move on.
Oh, how very good.
Can we be ready in 20 minutes?
Yes.
You bet. Come on.
Oh, what happens if the commander's not back?
Well, I don't think we should hang around if we're going to see Geoffrey.
Don't worry, I'll thank him for you.
Oh,
thank you.
Thanks.
Up. You looked a little cross just now.
No, not cross. Worried. Well, not even worried. Concerned, perhaps.
Because your uncle wants me to sit on the board of his new company.
Did he? I had no idea it had got as far as that. What company, anyway?
But he wants to launch a ticket agency for airlines.
But that's mad.
Why? You can buy tickets now through an agency for all sorts of things. Trains, boats, theatres. Why not an agency specialising in airline tickets?
Are there enough airlines?
Oh, yes. Look here. Imperial Airways, Lufthansa. Every European country has at least one major airline, not to mention the smaller charter groups like Ollie's and Pool Aviation. And, of course, America has many more.
Are you suggesting regular flights across the Atlantic?
Yes, why not? See, that's exactly the sort of doubts people had about the railways when they first started, and the internal combustion engine. You don't think twice now about going by train or driving your car, do you?
Well, no.
And just look at the way the Pools arrived yesterday with their friends and their aeroplanes.
All the same.
All the same, yes. You mean, don't trust your Uncle Jack?
No, of course not. I'm sure he's absolutely honest.
But?
But nothing.
But yes. Now, you think that because he likes to act the fool, he is a fool. But he isn't. He's just what the world needs nowadays. A young man with enthusiasm and ideas.
Oh, enthusiasm, I agree.
And ideas. And wasn't Pool Aviation his idea?
Yes, it was.
Yes, and I'm very grateful to him. And to Geoffrey Cartland.
Oh, you know Mr. Cartland?
Of course, yes, who doesn't? And I'm very grateful to both of them, because I have a few shares in their aviation company. Well, not as many as I would have liked, but then, of course, one never does have the courage of one's convictions.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything, should I?
We're ready, Katie, are you?
Yes, Tommy.
My passengers, I think. Perhaps when the village and your father have accepted the new rector, we might meet again.
Yes, perhaps.
Might even take my appendix out one day.
I might even do that one day.
Well, I better wait in the car. Please tell Commander Bourne I'm sorry, but I'm sure that I'm right, and that I hope he'll forgive me when he sees that I am. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Here, Nanny. Oh, that's for you. Oh, what's this? Well, it's just a little present for you because I'm giving you such a lot of extra work lately and you've been very patient.
Thank you, Lady Bourne. It's very kind of you.
Well, now, don't be surprised when you open it. It's rhubarb wine. Mrs. Fitzallen gave me some, and it's very nice.
Oh, I see. No, I won't be surprised.
No, but she's put it in whiskey bottles.
Eh?
I can't think why it looks rather odd. Perhaps she had a lot of empties lying about. That makes one think, doesn't it? Oh, my Nanny.
Thank you very much, Kate. No, you put it away. Shan't need it again this evening. Well, did I see our friends down by their aeroplanes in the lower meadow?
Yes, they decided they must go. They thanked you very much.
Good. Well, at least they've gone. We've got the place to ourselves again.
Did Rosie persuade you to reconsider?
No, she didn't. As a result, I think great bitterness and unhappiness is coming to this village. And I care very much about that.
Excuse me, sir. This note came for you while you were out.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gates. Oh, good Lord. It's from Herr Hayden.
What?
Dear Commander Bourne, Mrs. Cartland has told me how concerned you were at the possibility that I should become rector of your most charming village. So this afternoon I have been visiting it, and I think I would be quite wrong here. I'm sad to say, I feel the antagonism in the shop, in the post office, and in the street, because I am a German. It's a great shame, of course, but I could not consider becoming your pastor and feel sure you will find a more suitable Englishman for the position. With kind regards. Well, that's very nice, isn't it? I must ring the Archdeacon.
And ask him to tear up your letter?
Hmm? Oh, there. Yes, that as well.
It's a pity, Daddy.
A pity?
Yes, this village might have learned a lot. that's enough about me. Now it's your turn. What about you and Peter?
What about us?
Well, are you going to get married? Everyone here seems to think so.
Wouldn't you like to know?
Oh, all right, it's your secret. There's one thing that I would like to know.
What's that?
When Peter went to get you out of Spain, how on earth did he get in?
You'd better not tell anybody else, but it was bluff and false pretences. You remember that friend of his who'd been a Reuters correspondent out there?
Yes, of course. He was at Guernica.
Right. Well, Peter stopped off in London on the way and borrowed his passport and press permits, and no one ever asked any questions at the frontier or anywhere else.
Hey, what are you two doing down there this hour in the morning?
Letting our back hair down, Nanny.
And what was that supposed to mean?
Exchanging confidences.
Do you know what the time is?
High time all good little girls were in bed.
Oh, yes, indeed. Sorry, Nanny, did we wake you?
Oh, no. I was wakened with a motor car, and then I heard voices downstairs.
I am sorry you must lie in the morning.
Oh, that's for you young things.
Good night, Nanny.
Good night, my darling. Good night.
Nanny, what is it?
Can you hear the old house turning in its sleep? Sometimes, in the wee small hours, I imagine I can hear my darling wee Anne's voice. And one night, when I was here all alone, I distinctly heard your mother laugh. It's just silly old woman's fancies. Away to your bed, lassie.
And will you tuck me in, Nanny?
Oh, I might just do that. Come on.
Oh, morning, Captain. Your big suitcase is in the car.
Ah, thank you, Gates. Oh, is this my stirrup cup?
That's right, sir. Mrs. Gates said if the captain hasn't got time for a proper breakfast, well, at least he must have some hot coffee and a bit of toast for starting so early.
It's very thoughtful of her.
Oh, she asked me to apologise, sir, because the room's not been done yet. Only Mrs. Graham was late, sir, and Mrs. Webb's having the day off, so she can come in on Sunday when the house will be full.
Oh, it doesn't matter a bit.
Right, well, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Gates. I hope I'm not taking up too much of your time.
Oh, no, sir. No, you don't want to drive your own car, sir, over and get it stuck over there. Besides, Layford and back, sir, well, that's nothing. No, it's meeting the main line trains at Hereford or Worcester. That's what takes the time off the garden.
Yeah, well, there's no main line for me today. Mrs. Cotton's driving me up to London in the Rose. I should be there by 10 or past.
Oh, easily. That Brown, he knows how to push a car along. There's chauffeur, sir.
Ah.
Oh, and may I wish you good luck, sir?
Hmm?
Well, sir, I had it from Mrs. Gates, who had it from Nanny, who had it from Lady Bourne, that you and Mrs. Cartland were going up to London to interview possible staff for the mill house.
Ah, you can't keep a secret from the ladies, can you?
Oh, yeah, I'll take this out to the car, sir.
Julian, thank goodness. I was afraid I'd missed you.
Oh, what's the problem?
Oh, no problem, but Liz and Laura seem to be flat out, and I thought someone ought to say goodbye and wish you luck.
Oh, with the staff problem. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, not only that, but tonight, do be careful.
Please come in.
Klaus! What a lovely surprise!
Blissful?
Blissful!
Oh, good morning, sir.
Oh.
Well, what happened?
Well, I spoke to the manager of my bank. He's still very understanding. Told me to take a long weekend for my health. So I caught the night train.
Well, I'm very glad you came a day early, Klaus. You can take over as paterfamilias. Well, perhaps not quite that, but at least the man of the house, eh?
Commander Bourne is not at home?
No, he's with the fleet in, where is the fleet? Invergordon.
Yes, he's staying with Admiral Backhouse. And Uncle Julian is going to London till tomorrow evening. He says it's to interview servants, but it's really for this Dartmouth reunion dinner tonight.
Oh, yes, sir. I've been told that you was a captain of the Naval Academy.
Well, I was later, but I had, 2 stints, periods, at Dartmouth.
I never knew that, Uncle Julian.
Well, why should you? Now, the first one was in 1917, after I was wounded. The torpedo from one of your submarines, Klaus.
I'm sorry.
Oh, not a bit. Very efficient, those U-boats of yours. So, then I went to Dartmouth as a commander. That's like being a housemaster in a normal school. When 21, I went to sea again, serve with your father. And finally, I went back to Dartmouth in 27. Oh, dear, what a boring autobiography.
And this dinner will be the early lot.
Yes, these end-of-war terms. Well, I must tell you, I was keep Rosie waiting. Well, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Have a good trip. And do be careful.
Oh, what of?
Oh, that reunion, the demon drink.
My dear child, just an odd glass of claret with old friends.
Oh, that's what Daddy always used to say. Oh, well, if you want to get spifflicated once in a while, why not?
Ah, wise child.
Goodbye. That is going to be some party.
Oh, come along in, Mortimer. Ah, there we are.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now, tell me what you've been up to since we last met.
Well,
You better sit down, didn't you?
No, I'm all right.
Well, of course you're all right. We're both all right. Yeah, but we shifted a fair amount of claret over that dinner, didn't we?
Yes, well, these dinners are usually the same, sir.
Are they? I haven't been to one for ages.
I think you're very wise on the whole, sir.
No, well, you see, I went back to Dartmouth in 27, so it was very inconvenient to come to town at this time of year. And then when I retired in 31, I somehow didn't... Ah, there it is.
1931. Critical year.
Oh, was it? Oh, cigarette?
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, yes, it was absolutely. I mean, it was the year that the great slump hit this country and the mutiny in Invergordon.
Ah, yes, nasty business. Thank heavens I'd retired by then. Living in Cornwall, completely remote from life.
What on earth made you come back to London?
What? Well, I didn't. Oh, this isn't my flat. No, it belongs to an old friend of mine. You probably know him if you work in the Admiralty. Arthur Bourne. He's PPS to the Civil Lord.
Oh, that's right. Yes, a few years back, he did a bit of intelligence work for us in Germany with old Burrell's daughter.
Did he? How do you know?
Well, one gets to hear these things, but suppose I should have mentioned it, sir, or else I'll end up in the Tower. Would you mind forgetting it?
It's a privileged occasion. My lips are sealed.
Well, you always were the most understanding of officers, sir. I say, would you mind if we had the tiniest nightcap just to round off the evening?
Well, that's what we're here for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh? Whiskey and soda?
Lovely. Not too much splash, if you don't mind. Well, now, this is a turn-up for the book.
Oh?
Well, I mean, you being a friend of... you see, I very nearly didn't go to that dinner tonight.
Really?
Well, thank heavens I did, though. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here now, would I?
No, I don't suppose you would.
No, but what I mean is, sir, I wouldn't have met you again.
Ah, well, it's always a very pleasant surprise to meet old friends, isn't it? I'm only sorry that I didn't get Baker to come round here and have a chat. I had a chance to talk to him over dinner.
Oh. Baker. Roger Baker wouldn't go anywhere where I was going.
Really? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. If I remember rightly, at Dartmouth you were as thick as thieves.
Oh, yes. When we were adolescences, you know, when we were 15, 16, 17, they were halcyon days. Well, they were halcyon days in retrospect. Well, it was 20 years ago. Yeah. Well, water goes under the bridge in 20 years. Not a dirty water.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I always thought of you two as a team. The brightest cadets of your term.
The brightest and best of the sons of the morning.
Yes, and a damn shame you both chucked the Navy.
I couldn't see any future in it when the war ended. I mean, the services were bound to shrink. I had no quick promotion anymore.
No, that's true enough.
But was it the right decision?
Well, naturally, I didn't think so. Still, university, civil service, good enough career.
Ah, yes, university. Oxford was all right. Ah, Oxford was superb. Happiest days of my life. I say, this is a bit thin, sir. Would you mind?
Oh, I'll so.
But where am I now? Clive Mortimer, middle 30s, middle grade civil servant in the Admiralty. That's not even the FO, and I've still got Roger Baker treading on my heels.
Hey, steady on, Mortimer.
Oh! Steady, boys, steady. I say, look here. That's not Mortimer. I'm Clive to old friends and mentors. And you were an old mentor, weren't you?
Yes, in a way.
Oh, you absolutely were. Oh, yes, you weren't like those other officers at the old academy. All they were concerned about was discipline and cleanliness, godliness, smartness, doubling about the place, and... what the hell am I talking about?
I've no idea.
I know. Yes, your extracurricular tuition. I'll say that again. No, I won't. But you remember, so social history, 19th century, Peterloo, Toll Puddle Martyrs, Chartists.
Yeah, well, I always try to give a balanced view of history, you know.
Balanced? There's no such thing. All history is a history of class struggle.
What?
Oh, never mind. No, I say, Commander... Oh, I'm sorry. Slipped back a few years there. He's captain now, isn't it? I say, Captain... What am I talking about?
I think we'd better call it a day, don't you?
All night? Night and day. You're the one. Actually, you are the one who could help me. So I need to talk to you, sir.
Well, you are talking to me.
No. I mean, seriously. See, I need help, sir. I desperately need help. And you could help, couldn't you? I mean, as an old mentor.
Yes, if I can help you in any way, naturally I will, but not now.
Well, why not now?
Well, it's getting late, and I've had 1 over the 8. Yeah, and you've had about 8 over the 8. Next time we meet, eh?
No, look, sir, you don't understand. This is very serious. You see, it's my career. Look, I tell you what, I'll come down, I'll come and see you tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow, I'm going to the country.
Oh, well, then, I'll come with you. I mean, what I mean is, I'll stay at some local pub, whatever it is, and it's in Cornwall, isn't it?
No, Herefordshire. I'm staying with the Bournes.
The Bournes?
Yes, you see, I'm godfather to one of their daughters there, you know. I'm moving to another house shortly, down there.
Herefordshire?
Yeah. Look, Clive, if I can help you in any way, I will, but not tonight, and not tomorrow morning. Yeah, you better come down to Larkfield for the weekend.
Where?
Larkfield Manor. It's near Winchley, near Horbury.
Yeah, I'm awfully sorry, but I suddenly feel very sleepy.
Yeah, well, I'll write it down for you, then I'll call a cab. A taxi. And if you remember, I'll see you tomorrow night. Hey, for heaven's sake, don't go to sleep now.
No, I'll be right.
Yes, you'll be back in your own bed before you know where you are. You've been here before, haven't you? I'm awfully sorry, I'm a bit late getting up this morning. It's awfully good of you to pick me up like this, Rosie.
A pick-me-up is exactly what you need by the looks of you.
Well, you know what these reunion dinners are.
Well, I can't say I do, but I've seen the aftermath often enough. What on earth are you proposing to drink?
What you just prescribed. A pick-me-up. It's an old naval tradition. Enos and gin.
Oh.
Yes. Well, I'm surprised you haven't heard of it.
Oh, I've heard of it often enough. I just didn't realise people actually drank it.
Well, they did. I think they still do. You sure you wouldn't like it?
I would not. Is that what you taught your cadets, Dartmouth?
Oh, hardly. Oh, my God, that reminds me. I asked him to come down for the weekend.
Oh.
That fellow Clive Mortimer was here last night.
Oh, one of your boys?
Well, he's hardly a boy.
And you asked him for the weekend?
Yes. I will never to panic. He'll probably forgot all about it.
Why? You didn't.
No, but he's in a far worse state than I am. You know, the taxi driver and I practically had to carry him out to the cab. I don't suppose he'll surface until this afternoon. I said, do you think I ought to telephone?
Yes, I think perhaps you'd better, and Casey has remembered.
I don't know the number.
Oh, Julian, don't be so helpless. There's such a thing as a telephone book.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, no. I think I'm making a great deal of fuss about nothing. Anyway, if I do wake him, what am I going to say to him? That I've asked him down to somebody else's house? Nah, better let him sleep him off. Yeah. Now, what sort of time is it, you know?
12-ish.
Well, then, let's forget the Mortimer problem and have a drink, shall we?
Just had one.
Now, that was medicinal. I'm in an aperitif. Then I'm going to take you out for an early lunch before we go back. Now then, what's it to be? Gin?
No. A little French vermouth with a dash of gin.
Ah, right. Oh. Well, I better get the shaker and some ice.
Oh, no, please, don't bother. I'll have it at room temperature and unstirred. This cadet of yours, is he still in the service?
No, he left just after the war. I went to Oxford and now he's working in the Admiralty.
What department?
I don't know. I asked him last night. He was very evasive. I know, he said something about communications and then changed the subject.
How curious. Well, why did you ask him down for the weekend?
Well, he had some sort of problem and he thought I could help.
You felt responsible.
Yeah, silly of me, I suppose, but in a way I did. I suppose that's how a school teacher feels.
Yes, Charles Ashley is just like that. You know, Arthur's father-in-law. He always got into a tiz if one of his old pupils was in trouble.
Oh, you sure you wouldn't like some
No, that's lovely. Thank you. Delicious. Well, if your Mr. Mortimer still wants to get in touch with you when he sobers up, no doubt he will.
No, I doubt it. No, I think it was just some sort of bee he had in his bonnet. No, he wasn't making much sense of anything he said.
All right, Julian, you thought of something else.
Yes, but that didn't make much sense either. I think it was just another of his tipsy fantasies. Do you know what he said?
The suspense is killing me.
Yeah, well... You see, we were talking about Arthur, you know, because of my being at Larkfield and the flat and so on, and he said... he said that you and Arthur were doing a bit of spying for the Admiralty.
What?
Well, he didn't actually use the word spying. He said intelligence work in Germany.
How did he know that?
It's true, then.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Julian, you must not breathe a word of this to a soul.
Do you think I'd be likely
No,
to?
I'm very sorry, but how did he know?
Well, I haven't the foggiest. Not unless he works in the DNI's office, collating information, perhaps.
Yes, but if he's received some information like that, and he should not be talking about it outside. I wonder if I should tell my father about it.
Oh, no, please don't do that. I don't want to get the poor fellow into trouble. After all, it was a special circumstance, wasn't it? And he knows that me, and he knows I'm not likely to go blabbing to anybody. And he did feel very guilty about it, you know. He swore me to secrecy and
Yes,
so on.
but all the same,
I tell you what. I'll come up to London next week, and I'll get hold of Clive Mortimer and take him out to lunch and find out what it's all about. A few days can't make any difference, can they?
No, I suppose not.
Oh, Miss Vicky, you'll ruin your eyes trying to read in this light.
Oh, I didn't notice it getting dark. Well, what time is it?
5:30, miss. It's getting quite wintry now, isn't it? All the leaves will be down before we know where we are. Right, I'll put another log on the fire.
Oh, sorry, Mrs. Gates. I should have done that ages ago.
That's all right, miss. Oh, Miss Liz, will you be wanting some tea?
Oh, no, thank you, Mrs. Gates. I had some in Horbury.
Very good, miss.
Successful shopping? Not bad. Where did you have tea? Oh, you'll never guess. The dear old copper kettle. Right. That's where you used to meet your doctor, isn't it? Yes, must you remind me? Sorry. Funny how times change, isn't it? This time next year you'll be a doctor yourself, won't you? Well, only if I pass all my exams. Oh, you will. You work hard enough. I wish I could concentrate like you. Well, shouldn't you be practicing now that you're on your own? Oh, that's what I mean. I should, but I'm not. You know, I sometimes think it's a waste of my time and Daddy's money, me being at the academy. Oh, Vicky, what's happened to all that burning ambition? Where's our future Myra Hess? Oh, not me. I've only one ambition now. Oh, I know. Incidentally, where is Klaus? Has he deserted you for some buxom village wench? I don't think so. He's gone for a run, actually. A run? He's got a mania about fitness. Says he doesn't get enough exercise in London working in that stuffy bank. Well, at least it keeps him in England. There might be another way. No? Vic? It depends on Laura. No, I'm not going to talk about it. Unlucky. Whatever it is, good luck. Vicky? Hello. Hello. Have you been riding in the dark?
No, I've been back ages over in the stable.
How did Tallulah go?
She's an angel, but she could do with more exercise.
Well, if you're going to be here permanently now, you can ride her every day. See you later. Bye. It's a bit late, but if you want some tea, I'll go.
Oh, no, thank you. I came in the back and had a glass of milk in the kitchen. I say, Vic, do you think your father would mind if I took Tallulah out hunting next month?
Oh, I don't see why not. Anne used to hunt all the time.
Well, that's what I mean. Would it be tactless of me to suggest it?
Oh, heavens, no. After all, we got Tallulah back from the Cartlands for you to ride, and she loves hunting.
Good. Then I'll ask him when he comes back.
Oh, Laura, can I talk to you a minute before you go up?
Of course.
I want to ask you a favour.
What sort of favour?
Well, it's to do with Peter.
Oh. It's not the poor Peter thing again, is it?
The what?
You know, poor Peter, always unlucky with his girlfriend, so don't go and lead him up the garden path, Laura. Well, I can assure you, Vicky, that that's...
Laura, stop. It's nothing like that.
Oh, that's a relief.
The thing is, I want you to talk to Peter and ask him to change his mind about Klaus.
Oh, he did that long ago.
No, I mean about Klaus working for him as a pilot.
Oh?
Well, it's Jack's idea originally. Pool Aviation are having difficulty finding good pilots, so he suggested to Peter that Klaus could work for them.
And Peter turned it down?
Well, I'm sure it was just Peter's prejudice. Well, you could get round him. You could make him change his mind.
Did Klaus put you up to asking
No,
him?
he doesn't know anything about it. But he loves flying, and I know he'd jump at the chance to get out of working at that bank. And besides...
Yes?
Well, I thought that perhaps after a while he might apply for naturalisation. And if he became a British citizen...
You'd get married, and even if there was a war, you'd be on the same side. You're getting very cunning in your old age, aren't you?
Well, someone has to have something to hope for.
Well, I wouldn't count on it too much. But you never know. Anyway, the first thing is for me to get round Peter, isn't it?
Do you think you can?
I shouldn't be surprised. But if that's a visitor, I'm going to leave you to it. I simply must change.
Good afternoon. My name is Clive Mortimer. I'm expected.
Will you come in, please, sir? It's Mr. Mortimer, Miss Vicky.
Do come in, Mr. Mortimer.
Are you Captain Palmer's goddaughter?
Oh, no, that's my elder sister, Elizabeth.
Ah.
How do you do?
Well, if you want the literal truth, slightly roughish. And how's the gallant captain?
Captain Palmer, are you a friend of his?
I first met him 20 years ago.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Well, he's not here at the moment.
Ah, he's still not back from London. Well, I'm not utterly surprised.
You knew he was there?
Yes, well, we went to a dinner together last night, and I went back to his place for a nightcap. His flat. Well, it's not his flat. It's your father's, I believe.
Oh, of course, the reunion.
The reunion, indeed.
Well, he should be back quite soon. He's driving back with a neighbour, Mrs. Cartland.
Oh, that's Admiral Burrell's daughter.
Oh, you do know a lot about us, don't you?
I push a pen at the Admiralty.
Oh, I see. Well, do come in.
Thank you.
Sit down. You're staying in the neighbourhood for the weekend, is that it?
I'm staying here.
What?
Well, didn't you know? Oh, dear. Well, look, Captain Palmer asked me, but it was rather late at night, and perhaps he shouldn't have done, as it wasn't even his house.
Oh, heavens, that doesn't matter. Well, he must have forgotten to telephone or something.
Well, look, I can easily get a room in a pub nearby.
Well, do nothing of the sort. You were invited here for the weekend, and you shall stay for the weekend.
Thank you.
And I'm very glad you were able to come.
Well, in that case, so am I.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, Klaus, darling. Did you have a good run?
I'm afraid I was a bit lost when it became dark, but in the end all was well.
Good. This is Mr. Mortimer, who's going to be staying for the weekend. Klaus von Heinig.
Mr. Mortimer?
I have von Heinig. Yes, I know your name. Commander Bourne had a certain amount of press coverage last summer.
Yeah, 120 miles in 3 hours. Not bad going. Yeah. Good God.
Well, is it such a shock?
What? No, of course. Rose's is Clive Morton. I think I've mentioned him to you.
Yes, I think you did.
Yes.
How do you do,
This is Mrs. Cartland.
Mrs. Cartland, delighted.
Well. So, you remembered, eh?
Well, naturally I remembered. After all, you're going to sort my problems out for me, aren't you?
why on earth do you imagine that Roger Baker is persecuting you?
It isn't imagination, it's a fact.
But why? What on earth reason could he have?
Jealousy. Roger always wanted to be the brightest and the best, and he never quite achieved it. I was always one jump ahead.
Oh, that's perfectly true. You were one jump ahead of Dartmouth, but only just.
But it's always been like that. When we both packed up the Navy and both went up to Oxford, he went to Oriel and I went to the House, which made us neighbours, but gave me the edge socially.
That's rather a snobbish attitude, don't you think?
Of course, but it mattered to him. Then later, when it came to schools, I managed to scrape a first, and he could only get a good second. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I see what you mean. You both regard life as a personal struggle.
Well, I didn't, no, but he did, and it became an obsession with him. Especially when I was promoted assistant secretary while he was still only a principal. I mean, it has become a vendetta with him. He's trying to ruin me and ruin my career.
How?
By lies and slander.
Such as?
That I drink too much, that I'm profligate, that I'm wildly extravagant, that I gamble, you know, that I spend more than my income.
And do you?
No, but even if I did, what the hell has it got to do with Roger Baker?
Well, I don't know. You're supposed to be telling me.
I'm sorry. May I?
Oh, please do. Help yourself. Well, if he's slandering you maliciously, you could always sue.
No, he's far too subtle for that. It's all done with hints and innuendo, the nods and the winks, you know?
And to whom are these nods and winks supposed to be directed?
The head of the department.
Which department? You didn't tell me that last night.
No, well, let us just say that we're concerned with communications and we come under the DNI.
Intelligence?
So you can see what Roger's getting at.
Ah, I see. Yes, a profligate, drunkard spendthrift, not to be trusted with official secrets.
Precisely. Out with Mortimer. The end. Finish. Curtains.
I don't quite know why you're telling me all this. What can I do about it?
Get Roger Baker off my back.
Well, how? I haven't got any influence. I'm merely a retired captain.
Oh, yes, but you've got friends. Commander Bourne or Admiral Burrell could do it easily. You know, get Roger kicked upstairs, promoted and transferred to another department, or even better, to another ministry.
You're not asking much, are you?
Well, is it too much? After all, he'd be much better off somewhere else, where he didn't have to see me every day, where he could forget this maniacal feud. And you're not going to tell me that these sort of things don't happen through the old boys' network. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yes, I dare say. But even assuming that your vendetta story is true...
Well, it is true. Every word I tell you is true. I'm sorry, I see I've had a wasted journey, and I've put you into the embarrassing position of having to entertain me in someone else's house.
Oh, I think I can survive that embarrassment.
Well, only for tonight. I'll catch the first reasonable train in the morning, and, well, thank you very much for listening to me, sir. Good night.
Mortimer, Clive, look, wait a minute. You appeal to me as what you called an old mentor.
Did I?
Yes.
How very affected of me.
Well, you seem to think it gives you some sort of claim over me.
I'm sorry if I was presumptuous.
No, you're quite right. In some curious way, it does.
You mean you will help me?
Well, at least I'll think about it. And with your agreement, I'd like to talk to Mrs. Cartland.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is just the sort of situation which a woman could understand. I mean, if she could have a word to her father, I mean, not too much detail, but if you
yes,
could
all right. We'll see. Meanwhile, why don't you join the ladies?
I will, sir. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Are you sure you wouldn't want one?
No, thanks. I've had my ration for tonight, but if you want me to keep you company, I'll have a week's soda water.
Do you think it's a case of blackmail?
Blackmail?
Yes, to get Arthur or my father to do what he wants, or he'll make public what Arthur and I were up to in Germany last year.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, he didn't hint at it. And if he went blabbing about it in public, that would really finish him, wouldn't it?
Well, we blabbed to you last night.
That was in a special circumstance. Mind you, I think it's true he does drink too much, not only at reunions, judging by this evening.
Yes, well, if you want my advice, I'd keep out of it. Yeah. Don't get involved. It's hardly any of your business.
Yes, well, if I hadn't offered to help him last night, if I hadn't listened to his story, and if I hadn't asked him to come here to stay, I probably would walk away from it. But I can't now.
Well, what can you do? I mean, get Arthur to do what he wants? I don't think our MP would react too kindly to that, do you?
No, I don't.
And I'm certainly not going to approach my father until I know a great deal more about it.
Well, I wouldn't dream of asking you. Not until I've heard Roger Baker's side of the story first, anyway.
Do you know where to get hold of him?
Well, I think I'll get the number from the duty office at the Admiralty. Yes, and if I do get it, I'll go to London first thing tomorrow.
What, and leave Mortimer with the Bourne family for the whole of Sunday? That's a bit hard, isn't it? I say, why don't you ask him down here? I mean, what could be more natural? Someone you met at the dinner last night?
Yes, I could, I suppose, but I have to meet him somewhere else first. I mean, I don't imagine that a confrontation between the two of them at Larkfield would be very profitable, do you?
Not Larkfield, here. I can put him up, give him a meal, as long as he doesn't have to be back too early Monday morning.
Would you do that, Rosie? That'd be marvellous.
Well, I still think you're mad to get involved with this feud or whatever it is. But, as you're evidently determined to, and as I seem to have got involved as well, I'll string along with you. Why don't you ring the Admiralty and see if you can trace him?
Oh, don't turn over. I'm just reading a bit.
Vicky, get a paper of your own. Heaven knows there are enough of them.
I don't really want one. They're all so depressing nowadays.
Oh, it's horribly cold out there. Where have you been?
I've been showing Mr. Mortimer around the stables and introducing him to Delula.
The fine mare.
Yes. I must go and tidy now. Peter's calling for me in a minute.
Oh, aren't we going to church?
Oh, no. We're none of us going to church this morning.
Oh?
Because there isn't a service.
How's that?
Well, there was an early one, and there will be evensong, but no matins today.
Well, perhaps I could interest someone in an expedition to Worcester. We might find a sung Eucharist at the cathedral.
That sounds a bit high.
Oh, have I put my foot in it? Wouldn't your father approve?
I don't think he'd mind, would he, Liz?
No, of course not.
What do you think, Klaus? Might be rather lovely.
As you wish, Vicky. If Mr. Mortimer feels he must go, perhaps one of us should accompany him.
Well, I don't want to be a bore.
Well, you're not.
All right, let's go then. I'll take you in my car. Just go and get a hat and a coat. What about you, Uncle William?
No, I don't think so. For one thing, it overloads your car. For another, I went to service this morning. And for a third, I've got some arrangements to make. Yes, well, enjoy yourself.
My shoes are a trifle muddy. I think I'll go up and change them.
Don't be cross, Klaus, darling.
Not cross. Just I'm not greatly attracted by your Mr. Mortimer.
He's not my Mr. Mortimer. I'm only being polite to him because he's a guest. Don't be silly and jealous. And darling, I might have some wonderful news for you when Laura gets back with Peter.
What is it?
Wait and see till this afternoon.
Pensive heron perched on one leg, yes. Ah, would I be right in guessing that these little funnies are oyster catchers? But they're exquisite, sir. I had no idea you had such talent. I envy you.
Any more news about your London exhibition, Uncle George?
In March, if all goes well. Well, I'm sorry to abandon you, but I'm sure the girls will look after you.
Yes, of course. And if you're going to see Mrs. Cartland about what I hope you're going to see, may I say good luck, sir?
You may.
Well, you've all been so good at pandering to my foibles about church this morning, I must put myself entirely at your disposal this afternoon. I'll fit in with any plans you may have, or you may banish me to my bedroom if you wish.
Well, nonsense. I thought perhaps a walk after that enormous lunch.
Enormous and delicious. Yes, a walk would be most therapeutic.
We might take the dogs. Therapeutic for them, too. You may borrow one of my father's sticks if you wish.
You must admit he is a bit of a card.
Perhaps. Not a card in which I would be prepared to put any trust.
Oh, that's about it.
Well, it doesn't entirely surprise me, except that I wouldn't have thought Clive so naive as to expect you to swallow it.
Well, naturally, I wanted to hear your side of the story, too. But before we go any further, let me say how grateful I am to you for dropping everything at a moment's notice and come sweating out here to Herefordshire on a Sunday train.
Frankly, sir, I was delighted.
Oh?
I've been batting my head against a brick wall for years. Now that Clive's brought it out into the open, perhaps you can persuade our masters to see sense. Thank you.
Would you like me to leave you alone to thrash it out together?
Oh, no, please, Mrs. Cartland. You are, as they say, of the essence.
Am I?
You have access to your father, which is obviously denied to me. If I can persuade you...
Go ahead, Mr. Baker. Persuade me.
Clive is telling the truth, up to a point. I have been hounding him, but not for the reasons he gives. I've never been jealous of him. I've always known my own limitations, and his.
Well, as we seem to be letting our back hair down, what are your limitations, Mr. Baker?
I'm a plodder. Clive is facile and brilliant. He created an impression at the university, and at first in the service. But it's the old story of the tortoise and the hare. I shall end up as an undersecretary, with a K. He'll be God knows where. Probably in Moscow, advising on the significance of Time's leaders.
Moscow?
Oh, that's what it's all about, Mrs. Cartland.
Are you suggesting that Mr. Mortimer is a communist?
I'm not suggesting. I know he is. Look, at Oxford, he was a founder member of the October Club. He was a leading speaker at left-wing meetings. He used to help organize strikes at Cowley. He always used to maintain that it was you who first opened his eyes for him, sir, with your informal tutorials, the toll puddle martyrs, the Chartists and all that.
Well, I was merely trying to show you, show all of you that there's more than one way of looking at history.
But not for Clive Mortimer. Marx became his god, with Lenin and Engels as minor deities.
No, but this morning he was trying to persuade those Bourne girls to go with him to high church service in Worcester.
Well, of course. That's all part of the game.
Game?
No, you're quite right, Mrs. Cartland. It's not a game. In his last year at Oxford, he had a sudden miraculous conversion to Christianity and the Tory party.
Well, that happens all the time. Why miraculous?
Because he'd been earmarked for the Foreign Service. As it happened, he just failed to get in, but the Admiralty wasn't a bad second best.
Where you joined him?
No. I started out at the Board of Trade. It wasn't until 5 years ago that I was transferred to the Admiralty and caught up with Clive again.
And you considered him a bad risk?
Oh, far worse than that. A positive liability. I expect I shall get into trouble for saying any of this, but I believe that Clive became what is known in intelligence circles as a sleeper, planted in the Admiralty and waiting until he'd reached a level where he had access to worthwhile information.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Baker, but your story sounds just as fantastic as his.
Well, that's my headache all along. But in intelligence and official secrets, fantastic things do happen. And I'm convinced that there was a leakage of information from our department and that Clive is responsible.
Why? What reason do you have?
Well, it's difficult to explain to someone on the outside without saying too much. But, for example, there have been one or two occasions when a most secret file has come down from a higher level and been mysteriously missing for half a day, only to reappear equally mysteriously. And then again, there's been the odd occasion when Clive has made a point of staying late in the office, having made quite sure that everybody else had gone.
Well, what is so strange about that in the service, with work to finish?
Not strange for most people, but you don't know Clive. He's never been one for arriving early or leaving late without a very good reason.
Yes, but that doesn't sound much like evidence to me. Still, if Clive Mortimer is what you say he is, well, let's face it, a spy, why didn't you report it to the DNI or Internal Intelligence or somebody like that?
But I did.
When?
4 years ago.
What happened?
I don't know. I believe there was an investigation by Naval Security and the Special Branch. Presumably he was cleared. All I know is that I was thanked for my zeal, told to keep my mouth shut, and then passed over for promotion.
I'm awfully sorry to have dragged you into this.
Oh, don't be. I walked in with my eyes open. I'm not sorry. I find it fascinating.
You obviously don't believe me, either of you.
I don't disbelieve you. And I don't disbelieve Clive Mortimer, either.
Look, why do you think nothing came of that investigation?
Well, I have no idea, of course.
It was the old boys closing the ranks. Did you know that Clive's father was an ambassador? And that his uncle was an under-secretary at the India office?
No. Is that relevant?
Well, of course it's relevant, sir. It's all part of the old gang. They stick together. My father was a country solicitor. My grandfather was a peasant.
I don't wish to be offensive to a guest, Mr. Baker, but I think you've got as big a chip on your shoulder as has Mr. Mortimer.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cartland. I had hoped, but I can see I've had a wasted journey. If you'll be kind enough to send me to the station, I'll catch the next train back to London.
Hello. You two all alone? At the moment. This is upstairs studying or something, and Mr. Mortimer's having one of his sessions with Uncle Julian in there.
Good, because we've got wonderful news for both of you.
Ah.
You mean you've...
Yes. Peter's agreed that as long as his father approves, it would be a good thing if he asked Klaus to join Pool Aviation as a pilot.
Peter, you angel!
Hey, steady on, steady on.
Isn't it wonderful? I knew he'd do it. I knew it would.
So, this is it. It's great news. Why did you not tell me before?
I didn't dare, in case it didn't come off, but it has. Now you can resign from that stuffy bank and spend your time flying, which you love. And we can see much more of each other, not just weekends. And once you're working for an English company, well, I mean, who knows? Isn't it wonderful, darling?
No, Vicky, it is not. I think that you did not approve of this plan.
Well, it's nothing personal, Klaus.
You're absolutely right not to agree. You're very sweet, Vicky, but I'm afraid not always very sensible. You also are very sweet, Laura, but I'm surprised at you.
Well, I like that.
Klaus, don't you see?
Just think, if I became a British civil pilot carrying freight, how many times would it be easy for me to divert a little and fly over aerodromes, army camps, dockyards, factories?
You don't have to.
Try to be your age, Vicky. It would be demanded of me. And how could I refuse, since my parents are already what you may call hostages? As soon as I leave the bank and it is known what I'm doing, it would be demanded of me at the very least that I supply aerial photographs. In fact, I must become a spy. And I will not do this. If there must be fighting, this is different, but for spying, I have no stomach. Now, do not weep, Vicky. It is childish and sometimes rather irritating. Peter, why do we not go in the games room and play a little table tennis, yeah?
I think a game of ping pong is a very good notion, as long as we find a ball which has not been dented.
Oh, do stop it, Vicky. Don't be such a baby. It was an idiotic idea, and I shouldn't have had anything to do with it. But you know, but you shouldn't have asked me, not without talking to Klaus first. I had quite a row with Peter this afternoon, and I didn't like it. I think it was too bad of you.
Now, there are some things you must tell me.
Yes?
First, is there any truth in the allegation that when you first went to the Admiralty, you were what Baker calls a sleeper?
Yes, it is true. That was in 1923. Lenin was still alive then, and I was still gullible, I suppose is the word. But it didn't take me long to get over that, and I soon saw the light. I saw my contact. I told him to forget it. I'd had enough.
Who was your contact?
I'm sorry, but one still has certain personal loyalties. All I can tell you is that he was an Oxford Don, and he has since died.
Very well. Now, this is the crucial question. Did you ever, at any time, pass any information on to him or to anybody else?
Never. I give you my solemn word of oath. Never, never, never.
And you believed him?
Yes, I did. It had the ring of truth about it, and it seemed to make sense.
And Roger Baker's story?
Well, he believes it. Perhaps because he wants to believe it.
Vendetta?
Or perhaps that too. I don't know. Anyway, those two will have to work out their own salvation. I'm not going to take sides. You were right, all the time.
I what?
Yes, when you warned me not to get involved.
Ah, but you are involved, and so am I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, well, as it's turned out, I'm not.
Oh?
When you rang me this afternoon and told me what Mortimer said, I realised that we had got into something that we couldn't possibly ignore. I mean, say if Mr. Mortimer was lying and Mr. Baker was telling the truth.
Oh, I don't think that's the case. Still, I see what you mean. You think I ought to report it to the DNI's office?
I already have.
What?
I'm afraid I cut corners. You know, the old boy network. I rang my father. He was horrified. Got hold of the DNI, then rang me back. Roger Baker will be transferred immediately. Probably to the Colonial Office.
But why? I mean, you mean they accept the vendetta theory?
Oh, no. Because Mr. Baker was absolutely right. But if he'd been allowed to go on probing, he might have become a serious embarrassment. You see, Clive Mortimer is and always has been a spy. They've known since he was first investigated.
And they've done nothing about it?
Oh, yes, they've done plenty about it. Allowed him to pass on genuine but fairly useless bits of intelligence, along with a great mass of false information, which they have deliberately been feeding him.
Well, I'll be
shot at dawn if you breathe a word of this to a soul. My father only told me because he had to, when he knew how much I already knew.
Huh. Well, I was completely hoodwinked by Clive. Huh. I'm afraid I'll never be any good at intelligence work.
You have a sweet and trusting nature, Julia.
Yes, and you have all the instincts of a Mata Hari. Oh, come on, let's see him off the premises.
Well, all that remains to be seen now is whether my car will start. I'm just going to take Mr. Mortimer to the station.
The horrible Sunday evening train, but I have to be at my desk in the morning, and it's much better than getting up at the crack of dawn.
Well, I'll just go and see that my car starts. If it needs cranking, I'll scream for help.
Mrs. Cartland, very nice to see you again, even if so briefly.
Well, at least I've got some very good news for you to take on your journey.
How nice.
Yes. Captain Palmer has just told me, in the strictest confidence, of course, that he will move heaven and earth to get Roger Baker transferred.
What? Oh, yes, of course. I mean, that's what you wanted, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's really splendid. I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank you, sir.
Oh, not at all.
And with your influence, I'm sure you'll succeed.
Oh, I have every confidence in him. Goodbye, Mr. Mortimer.
Should we just say au revoir?
Yes, I'll see you out.
And you, sir. I mean, thank you again, mille fois. And if we don't meet before, perhaps I'll see you at next year's dinner again?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I could face any more of those. Well, good night, Mr. Mortimer. Oh, she started it. You know, there'll be plenty of time for your train, and there is a restaurant car.
Thank you.
That was a beautiful performance, Rosie.
With all the instincts of a Mata Hari. Well, now that I've done my good deed for the day, I must go.
Oh, must you?
Oh, yes, I must be back for dinner.
Arthur!
Oh, how lovely!
I thought you weren't coming back from Invergordon to the end of the week.
No, things got a bit hectic up there. Not my pigeon, so I pulled out. The Admiral was involved in some rather tricky disciplinary proceedings.
Oh, not another mutiny?
No, not there, but I'm afraid, well, I can't tell you what it was about.
More secret.
What?
No, nothing.
Oh, I say, who was that fella Liz was driving away? It's not another boyfriend.
No, just an old cadet of mine, you know, just visiting.
Liz was driving him to the station.
I see. Well, can't tell you how good it is to be home again, you know. These last few days have been nothing but giving interviews and making decisions. It's quite exhausting. What have you two been up to?
Oh, nothing special, Arthur. Just the usual quiet country weekend.
Oh, good. Looking forward to a couple of days quiet myself, Dear old Larkfield, where nothing ever happened.